Ta-da!
We're live.
And we're live.
Hello, everyone.
Hey. Hi.
Let's see.
Good
Who do we
evenings.
have here with us in the live audience? We have Mike Kuipers, the mayor of SQPN. We have Liz. Oh, wait a minute. Liz is so many places. She's in the chat room. She's over here in my ear. Both ears, actually. I see her little video image thumbnail in StreamYard. Let's see. We have Ken Hayes, Neil Landworm. Evening all beer in hand. Tie on the way.
I like it.
Vetland 11. Rick K. He's given us permission to say Rick. Oh, really? Who's in Oslo, Norway? Where I'm not seeing it. Oh, Vetland 11 is in Oslo. Oh, nice. What's the weather like there now? Is it getting warmer? We'll just have to wait for a while to get his response.
I was going to try and
gotta get
search
to
real
Norway.
quick, but like fat fingered my. I was going
You
to just
gonna
try
look
and
it
search it real quick.
Hey, Paul Worster. You're probably lonely over there in the Facebook chat room because everybody else is over in the YouTube. Okay. I also put it in the on the Facebook post. I think I included it in one of my comments there. People can just click on that. I think it's even in the description over there.
The Weather
on
Channel says
Facebook.
it's 44 degrees and partly cloudy in Oslo, Norway.
Yeah, that's not bad. For
High
Norway.
of 50
Yeah.
yesterday.
Paul is
And then
in Texas. Hello,
Tuesday's
Paul.
going to be fun. Yeah, sunny. Nice.
Seriously though, Paul, head over to YouTube. I think you'll enjoy the experience better because that's where most of the action's going on there. All the cool kids are over there, Liz says.
Well, I'm hoping this show won't be a.
Wow, what is this I'm looking at?
Who gave Nick control?
Oh, it's part of the little teaser of the plane tail?
Yeah.
Is that somebody that didn't wear a parachute?
Not many people wear a parachute in this story.
I know. A little worrying.
Yeah, I know it's not. And I think I did this one with Steph in mind because I'm, thinking.
Yeah, I've-
Statistically, she might like to try it one day, jumping without a parachute.
No.
No.
I've seen Steph jump without a parachute on the back deck of her house.
Oh,
I've
fair
seen her
enough.
jump up and down.
Yeah.
Not out of an airplane. No, never
No.
seen that. Chris Griggs, I have a mothership APA. Oh, okay, that's right. Nice weather in Oslo. The last snow melted a couple of days ago.
Oh,
Nice.
prettiest girls
nice.
in the world in Oslo.
Really?
Well, they were when I visited it.
How long had it been since you saw a girl?
Well, not that long.
I'm just kidding. I think the Scandinavian girls are gorgeous, beautiful.
Absolutely.
Dutch girls are also beautiful, for sure. I know a couple of them. I think we all do. Okay. Well, I think... Oh, let me hit my record button.
That's right.
Let's see. Is it recording? I didn't get a nasty message that says that I don't have my SD card in.
That's good.
So, yeah.
Now you look like the guy from, what was that show? Home
Tool
Improvement?
Time?
where you could- Tool Time, yeah.
Yeah.
Wilson.
Wilson.
We could only see his, forehead over the fence.
Only 31 hours and 25
Howdy, neighbor.
minutes left.
Howdy.
on- yeah.
That's a classic.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Well, Vetland, whatever your real name is. Hey, what is that? Who did that? I did that. I just looked up at my
Sorry, we
my
were-
video.
Amused. We're easily
By my video?
entertained, Jeff. Yeah.
Well, I had to. Yeah. Okay. Well, good. That
Simple
means
people
that
here.
it's good. You're good company if you're easily entertained. So Vetland says that his wife is Asian, but she's in Oslo and she's a woman. So there we go. It applies. Beautiful women.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. looking. So I got the recording going. Everybody else has the recorders going that has them.
Yep.
I mean, we can clap if you want, but again, yeah, let's do that. Okay. APG 465 in 3, 2, 1. I try to do it in a constant pattern. Hey.
I was like miles ahead of all of you. Yeah.
No, I thought I was
Well,
ahead. I was definitely
sounded like
first.
I was ahead. Weird. Okay. Looking at the.
If you want to get ahead, get a hat.
Okay. All right.
Old timey advice there that I'm no longer familiar with.
You calling
Oh.
me old timey?
Oh, I see. Eric is Vetland 11. Oh, there we go. Eric, Aerik. Yes, she is a woman. So Eric is a woman. Okay, I got it. I know.
No.
Hey, we're not making
Eric
any
is from
judgments
Vetland,
here.
and his wife is a woman.
Okay. Again, I don't want to get in trouble from Google, YouTube, or
These are just
anybody
facts.
regarding.
These are just facts at this point.
Well, I know.
Facts.
Well, I mean,
As given to us
sometimes
by-
that doesn't matter.
Sometimes not.
Yep.
It matters for Eric, though. Yes. Okay. Ready
Me?
when I am. Okay. Let's do it. It's about, I'll wait for a few seconds here and we'll call it 10 after. Wow, that's pretty good for us.
I know.
Okay. So just a warning, Radio Roger was not able to record our intro this week. So you'll just have to put up with the old school method here. All right, here we go.
You're listening to the Airline Pilot Guy Show.
The view from our side of the cockpit door.
WAPG, it's the Airline Pilot Guy.
Airline Pilot Guy, episode 465.
Yeah, he's up in the sky. It's the Airline Pilot Guy.
Hello, you're listening to the Airline Pilot Guy Show, the view from our side of the cockpit door. I'm Captain Jeff, your host, broadcasting live from Studio 1A at APG headquarters in Roswell, Georgia. Today's show was recorded on the 25th of March in the second year of COVID, 2021.
Yeah, he's up in the sky. It's the Airline Pilot Guy. Put your light and he's flying by. With the Airline Pilot Guy.
In today's episode, a Boeing 717 First Officer sues Qantas for PTSD. A passenger bites off seatmate's ear. More news, your feedback, and this week's plane tale, terminal velocity. So get all settled in. Tray tables and seatbacks in their upright and locked positions. Electronic devices powered on. Flight 465 is ready for pushback. Thank you, Captain Jeff, not Roger Stern, who is an award-winning TV and radio reporter from New York City. But he's off this week, so I tried to follow in his footsteps, but, didn't even get close. Anyway, welcome to the Airline Pilot Guy Show, an aviation podcast covering the latest in aviation news and answering your great feedback. I'm Captain Jeff, a pilot at a major legacy airline based in Atlanta, GA, and joining me today from her lakeside studio in South, she's a doctor, skydiver, marathon runner, strength training junkie, IPA connoisseur, and commercial multi-engine instrument-rated backstabbing jumper-dumper, Dr. Steph.
Hey, Captain Jeff. Glad to see you guys this afternoon. It is a lovely day for a podcast, and I'm really looking forward to this episode. And that's all I got.
And joining us from his mobile studio in Texas, world traveler, airplane mechanic, Breitling cognoscenti, fitness hound, and international air freight captain. It's Miami Rick.
Hey everybody, and my big old jet airliner. Doesn't carry me too far away these days, but I've been bitten that way. And I like it. Happy to be here. It's going to be another great one.
And last but not least, certainly from his studio in
Hartford, Hereford, and Hampshire.
Hurricanes hardly happen.
professional photographer, former RAF, RAAF fighter pilot, retired Airbus A330, A340 captain for Virgin Atlantic Airlines. It's Captain Nick.
Hi, everybody, and cheers from the United Kingdom. Am I the only one drinking today?
drinking
No, Steph never
Dr.
lets me
Pepper.
down.
I wouldn't let you down there, Nick. I am.
Thanks.
I'm going to
Thanks.
have one beverage
we'll
now.
just stay on the bottom level here.
Well,
Steph,
yeah,
and
I'm going to
quietly.
have one beverage now, and then I'll go back to just non-alcoholic kombucha for the rest of the show. So I don't.
Yeah,
It's early
yeah,
today, so I don't want to
Geyser.
get myself in too much trouble. Yet.
Just what is that chilled vodka there, Rick?
Yeah, chilled vodka in a water bottle. I'm just trying to keep it.
I've seen that trick before.
And
Been to
I
a few
will,
college parties back in the day. I feel like that was a.
Hey, the show is young, so I'm sure
Yeah.
that I'll crack open a nice IPA at some point later on. But in the meantime, I think we need to go right to the news.
Stand by for news.
All right, the first item in the news folder is First Officer Sues Qantas for PTSD after 717 engine failure. And this is from Australian Aviation. And it was sent in to us from dispatcher Greg up in Chicago. A former Cobham Aviation first officer is seeking $780,000 in damages from Qantas after she was operating a Boeing 717 that suffered a mid-air engine failure. Jacinda Cotti claims she suffered post-traumatic stress over the incident, which she blames on the flag carrier for not maintaining its aircraft properly. Qantas has said in response the situation was caused by a manufacturing fault and insists all pilots are trained to respond to engine failure events. Yeah, like every time we go into the simulator. Cotti was operating the Qantas Link flight 1799 from Alice Springs to Brisbane on the 10th of March 2018, so a little over 2 years ago. 3 years ago, actually, when the Rolls-Royce engine failed about 550 kilometers from its destination. At the time, the Courier Mail reported witnesses heard a loud bang and the plane began to shake. One passenger claimed they were told to brace, and they were sending goodbye messages to loved ones, while the crew briefed one man on how to operate the emergency door on the aircraft, read the report. Passengers cheered on the Qantas crew after the landing. The aircraft didn't need to make an emergency landing, but passengers were met by emergency services in Brisbane as a precaution. At the time, Cobham, or National Jet Systems, had operated a fleet of 717s on behalf of Qantas Link. The Australian reported a later engineering inspection revealed damage to the compressor blades and the engine was removed. Cotti's, the first officer's claim, is based on lost past and future earnings, and court documents lodged in Brisbane District Court says she believes the responsibility for the incident lie entirely with her employer and Qantas Link. The claimant says that the maintenance when the accident occurred was largely performed in Canberra, and due to poor maintenance practices with the 717 aircraft, the maintenance was ultimately moved from Canberra to Singapore. Further, the 717 aircraft was removed from service on the Hobart route due to ongoing issues with maintenance. What happened to me highlights the importance of airlines providing care to all crew members following an incident, especially in the mental health space, said Cotti. National Jet Systems did not provide proper crisis care after the event. Slater and Gordon principal lawyer Kavita Maharaj also argued Qantas Link breached its, quote, duty of care and overlooked safety. Qantas said in response that this was the only engine shutdown on Qantas Link's Boeing 717 fleet over a 5-year period, and it may well be that no member of the Qantas group is the entity responsible for the maintenance or service of the engine. The cause of the engine issue from the flight in March 2018 was investigated, and Rolls-Royce determined it was a manufacturing fault and not related to maintenance. All Qantas aircraft are maintained to the highest safety standards, and our fleet of Boeing 717 aircraft have a 99.99% reliability rate. This is the only engine shutdown on Qantas Link's Boeing 717 fleet over a 5-year period. Like all pilots, the first officer had been trained on how to respond in the event of an engine power failure. Discuss.
Are you kidding me? This,
I know.
God,
Took the words
golly.
right out of my mouth there.
I just
Well,
have no idea how to respond to this.
So does she sue the training facility every time she has to go back for recurrent? I mean, is that you know?
Yes.
ruffling
I'm
her
also-
feathers too, a little bit.
Wondering about that dollar amount that she's seeking damages for past, future,
Yeah.
and current earnings. Seems like a lot. I don't know.
That's
True.
Maybe she's counting on pay raises in the future contract.
Gotcha.
Which is
That she's not going to get now. I don't know. It's so hard in this current climate, in any climate, to dismiss someone who is suffering from a mental condition, because we all know that we're all vulnerable to it in one way or another. And I think if you develop PTSD, then it needs to be taken seriously, and you need to receive treatment for it. The thing I just cannot equate is a trained first officer, first of all, being so traumatized by what should be a reasonably standard emergency, because we see it all the time, we practice for it all the time, such that she's into that condition. But I'm not an expert, so I can't talk about that. What I can talk about is the fact that she holds the company solely to blame. And I'm going, really? No, I'm sorry. I just, if you want to sue someone, you're going to have to find someone else to sue, because I think the company have an excellent defense, and I can't see her getting anywhere with this case. It's a frivolous case. I do know a lot of companies would rather settle out of court with these things than go through the expense of going to court, but they're certainly not going to settle out of court for that amount. And a lot of companies do this. They get a claim against them, and most people would just slap their foreheads, and I'm sure Rick's going to in a minute, and just go, you are kidding me. But because of the cost of defending yourself against them, you'd rather just settle because it's cheap.
Well, and then when you do that too, you don't have to take risks with what what the outcomes might be. You think it's a cut and dry case in your favor, or in the company's favor in this case. But if you can have a settlement for it, then you can say, okay, here's the dollar amount that we're giving you, or whatever monetary amount that we're giving you, and it's done. Like, you can't come back to us about this again in the future. So it's a much easier way to kind of get it to not play out over the long term, or not rear its head in the future again.
Another thing, I mean, the fact that she came, that she went through this whole thing, whatever her motivations were, from the pilot point of view, there is no such thing as a career first officer. Every first officer is on track to command, and to me, the fact that she would react that way to an issue for which she has clearly been trained for repeatedly, tells me that she's just in the wrong line of work. I mean, she shouldn't have been sitting in that seat. And
Right.
I mean,
There are certain jobs that require
as
a certain-
harsh. Yeah, as harsh as that might sound, she's just not cut out for it. I'm sorry. And,
Well, there's a lot of jobs in the world that require a certain amount of mental fortitude or ability to deal with stressful events. And if that's not you, then, like Rick said, it's probably best to just look for a career that you're not going to subject yourself to those kind of stressful situations. And there's nothing wrong with that.
No,
not
yeah,
everyone's cut out to
absolutely
do every job out there.
I mean, he could
Absolutely
even be
not.
a doctor, pretty much.
We never have stressful situations. I promise.
Yeah.
No, you never see people dying around you, and you never stab the wrong spinal cord, do you?
Yeah.
Just-
But
Never.
as Steph
We're
was
not
saying,
talking about that. Sorry,
Be very
sorry,
clear
Steph.
about
Sorry.
no, I was saying, as Steph was saying, this being an airline pilot, and having, being responsible not only for the safety and well-being of your passengers, but also for the integrity of the aircraft, the operation, the brand, and all these things, and in a constantly ever-changing high-stress environment, does take the right mindset. And as Steffi said, some people just don't have it. And that's not wrong with that, but let someone else that has the I guess qualities required for this type of job take that place. So I mean, that's all I have to say about that. It's just yeah.
And I think we
worry
all agree
about-
with Nick that, we want her to be well in the future going forward and get the help that she needs to get past whatever, trauma is there for her individually. That's still important.
Yeah, and also I have to commend Qantas here because they are not. They're taking the high ground here, the high moral ground. They're not saying a word about any other ulterior motives that she might have had for leaving the company and raising this lawsuit. So they're not saying she was bad at her job. They're not saying that she failed training. They're not saying any of that. And that may be because there's nothing there. But usually you can dig up something on a pilot because we are so continually under the microscope. We're always being examined. There's always something that we can do to improve. And all they're doing is responding, saying, no, this has nothing to do with us. It was a manufacturer's fault in the engine that was apparent from the point the blades or whatever the fault was were constructed. Nothing to do with the company or maintenance. So
I wonder about the timing of this. The very much in the news, United 777 that had the big engine failure and the whole bit, and all of a sudden this is a lawsuit that's filed because it kind of reminds me of that time I was first officer on the airplane and the engine blew up, and I'm wondering if I should talk to a lawyer or two and see if there's a case here for me to get some money. I don't know.
Interesting. I don't know if it would happen that quickly that it would come out in the news. I mean, that's a pretty quick turnaround, but
I do
possible.
think, and I did alter or took out some of the narrative of this news article and what you're seeing in Evernote. I do think that at some point in the article they did mention the United flight and the engine exploding. So I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe it's just coincidental.
yeah, I mean, as a passenger, I would be actually quite concerned to hear of a pilot that could be flying me around, finding the drama of an engine failure sufficient to cause them PTSD. And I would be saying, wow, aren't our pilots supposed to be made of more, sturdier material than that? So I don't think it's a good reflection on us as an industry, as professional pilots, that this sort of thing happens.
Yeah. Neither do I. All right. Well, thanks for a great discussion regarding that, and I hope that this first officer gets some help for the mental issues and such, and we'll hopefully hear something about how the lawsuit is finalized as time goes on here. All right, second item, news. Laser attack forces Virgin Atlantic Boeing 787 Dreamliner diversion. This is from Simple Flying. A Virgin flight had to turn back last night after an incident with a laser beam. The aircraft was operating flight 453 from London to Heathrow to Tel Aviv, Israel. Excuse me, London Heathrow. Not London to Heathrow, that would be a very short flight, to Tel Aviv, Israel, when a laser struck the cockpit. Out of an abundance of caution, the crew turned back to Heathrow, landing safely at the airport an hour and a half later. Virgin Flight 453 is the regular 4 times a week evening departure from London Heathrow to Tel Aviv. It is operated by the airline 787-9 Dreamliners, and on this occasion was being flown by Golf Victor Delta India Alpha, also known as Lucy in the Sky. Oh, I get it, because VDIA for diamond, I guess. The flight, which usually takes around 4 hours to complete, had departed Heathrow as planned at 21:30 Greenwich Mean Time. However, the aircraft's cockpit was hit by a laser beam on departure, causing a distraction to the pilots and a danger to the flight. The Aviation Herald reports that the captain was becoming increasingly challenged following the attack. Out of caution, the pilots decided to head back to London. The flight declared a pan-pan to ATC and turned about over Paris to return to its origin. Virgin Atlantic told Simple Flying, on 15 March 2021, Flight 453 operating from London Heathrow to Tel Aviv returned to Heathrow after takeoff due to a laser beam incident upon departure. The safety and security of our people and our customers is paramount, and this was a precautionary step taken by the operating crew. We'd like to thank our customers for their patience and apologize for any inconvenience caused. All customers were offered overnight accommodation, and we are working hard to ensure they are able to continue their journeys as soon as possible. As is standard procedure for a laser incident, we swiftly notified the police and remain in close contact with them and the Civil Aviation Authority. The aircraft landed safely back in London, Heathrow, at 22:45.
Sounds very similar to the previous occurrence that we had a year or two ago. Same company, an Airbus this time. The guys were hit in the face with a laser during departure, and they made it all the way to the entry point of the Atlantic route system before they decided that one of them wasn't feeling well. It was getting blurry eye vision and headaches, and so they turned around and came back again. And this is a similar sort of incidents. And we said it then. These lasers can be incredibly powerful, and on a clear night with a high-powered laser, the power will hardly have diminished in the over several miles that it would probably have been fired at the cockpit. And some of these lasers are so powerful that they will set light to stuff. And even if you're a distance away, they can still give you a considerable amount of damage. So don't blame the crew for being cautious. Don't like the term an abundance of caution, because that's out of an abundance of caution. That seems to indicate they were being overly cautious to me. I just think they decided that, no, don't feel completely comfortable, don't feel happy about this, don't want to go. And this particular route, I don't know exactly how Virgin run it, but they don't overnight in Israel. I think they have another crew on board, and they come home. It might have been several hours before they were back in the UK, and by that time, of course, any damage that might have occurred will have sat there and been untreated. So I don't blame them for doing this.
A couple of questions for you, Nick.
Yeah.
Doesn't this flight path go kind of close to your house there in Hampshire? That's one question. The second one, are you still feeling quite disgruntled for having to retire from the airline, and you're just kind of possibly taking it out on?
So the fact that this was a Boeing doesn't justify
That
that
too.
question at
That was
all.
going to be my question.
Exactly right. But there was a bit of cloud over my house that night. So,
Sure.
But having said that, there have been some very clear nights lately, beautiful moons and things.
Easy to get a really nice shot on those.
Yeah, I know.
cockpits.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah. But I like to use my sniper rifle personally.
Oh boy.
Stand by for next week's news and a
got
new
an email
co-host.
There's someone knocking at the door.
What's with Nick's striped pajamas?
Have to change his
No,
intro.
but
Location music.
I've been hit with that with lasers a couple of times, and going into it used to happen a lot going into Rio de Janeiro and Sao Paulo and Campinas and in Brazil. So much so that it was actually part of the briefing to keep your eyes inside once you got down, below a certain altitude, and it would show up on the NOTAMs as well. I don't know. I imagine the lasers could have been a little powerful because in one instance we were just under 10,000 feet, and the entire cockpit lit up bright green, and so none of us felt anything. Obviously you want to protect your vision, so you just look down and you just protect your eyes. Other than that, I know of instances of not colleagues of mine, but pilots that have been hit with lasers in the eyes, and then that can have a very, very damaging effect to vision. And as pilots, we rely on our eyes 100% for our jobs. So I can see how that would. I guess, warrant a return. It's especially, I mean, I didn't know what Nick just mentioned here, the fact that the flight over to Ben Gurion is an out and back, so that makes a lot of sense that they'd want to come back and make sure that the crew is fine. But from experience, as long as you're prepared for it, you know, just don't look out. But then there's the whole startle effect and the fact that you're not expecting it and you might be looking out, and then so it just you just never know. So it's just,
I've never had an incident like that, but I'm wondering if it's like tempting to want to look out the window and see if you can find on the ground where the source of the thing is, and that's what it really gets you.
Yeah, exactly. That's why you see that bright green or red light in the cockpit, you just bury your head down the panel to just stay away from that, because that's the first I guess reaction to try to find out where the hell this thing's coming from. So yeah.
Ever been hit by a laser, Steph?
Nope.
Yeah, I haven't either, thankfully.
Yeah.
No, it happened to me on approach to Heathrow, but I just closed that eye and kept the other one open. Joking.
Wasn't sure if you were serious.
I was like,
our nuclear attack pilots used to be given a black eye patch. Yeah, exactly right. So that if they went through their journey and a nuclear bomb went off and burned their eye and they couldn't see anymore, they'd switch the patch over so they could use the good one.
Did they?
I don't know if
were
that's
they
true.
issued parrots as well? Okay.
Well, they all had wooden legs, so they're halfway there.
Oh my gosh. I'm glad we're so serious here. All right, let's move on. Robert from Marietta, south of the Big Chicken, sent us a link to an article. He said, this was news to me about FedEx basing pilots in Hong Kong, but having to move them to San Francisco due to the pandemic. I thought this was an interesting read, so I thought I would pass it along. And this is from the 1mileatatime.com, 1 Mile at a Time blog. The United States threatens to ban Cathay Pacific flights. Could Hong Kong's strict and arguably unfair quarantine requirement lead to Cathay Pacific being banned from flying to the U.S.? A new U.S. Department of Transportation DOT filing suggests that this could be the case. In February, Hong Kong introduced a strict new quarantine requirement for airline crews. With this, pilots and flight attendants returning to Hong Kong are subjected to a 14-day quarantine in a hotel, plus 7 days of medical surveillance thereafter. Hong Kong has had a strict quarantine requirement for around a year now, but historically airline crews have been excluded from this. However, with some coronavirus cases being linked to the airline crews, Hong Kong has added these new requirements, which have caused airlines to totally rework how they crew flights. There are a few interesting exceptions, though. This quarantine requirement doesn't apply to crews that just work direct turnarounds, as well as crews operating flights to mainland China, Taiwan, or Anchorage. The Anchorage exception may seem random, but conveniently, Cathay Pacific has a major cargo hub there. FedEx isn't happy. They got the U.S. DOT involved in this situation. The cargo airline has historically had 180 pilots based in Hong Kong who were essential to maintaining the carrier's intra-Asian network. However, the quarantine requirement has made it impossible for the airline to maintain its Hong Kong crew base. FedEx moved its Hong Kong-based crews to San Francisco in order to maintain the viability of critical operations in its intra-Asia network, but it's noted that this arrangement is causing the airline to incur significant operational costs and personal burden on pilots. FedEx is unhappy because Hong Kong unilaterally made an exception for Anchorage, which benefits Cathay Pacific. FedEx has sought to work with Hong Kong to establish an exception for intra-Asia service points, as it's argued that, quote, FedEx applies health and safety controls for its intra-Asia operations commensurate to those required for Anchorage. This is where the situation gets fun. The U.S. DOT has indirectly threatened to ban Cathay Pacific. Here's what it boils down to. The bilateral agreement between the U.S. and Hong Kong calls for fair and equal opportunity for the designated airlines of each contracting party to compete with the designated airlines of the other contracting party. It's argued that Hong Kong is providing preferential treatment to Cathay Pacific, giving the unilateral and arbitrary decision to make an exception for Anchorage. The DOT has tried contacting Hong Kong authorities to address this, but a January 28 letter went unanswered until March 1st. Even then, the authorities in Hong Kong only promised to consider other exceptions, with no timeline provided. The DOT has decided that this imbalance denies U.S. carriers their bilateral right to a fair and equal opportunity to compete, and the DOT is now requesting that all Hong Kong airlines, primarily Cathay Pacific, file their schedules for U.S. service within 7 days, and then the U.S. will decide if these schedules may be contrary to applicable law or adversely affect the public interest. Put more plainly, if Hong Kong doesn't carve out exceptions for FedEx pilots, then you can expect that the U.S. will stop Cathay Pacific from operating its schedule to the U.S. So what do you think about this little spat going on?
Well, I'll tell you, two can play that game, and that's exactly why I'm bidding domestic flying lately. Because man, oh man, it's been a little while since I've been to Hong Kong, and when I was there, it was starting to get a little crazy. I mean, it's just not worth it. Just going over there and just sitting in your hotel for sometimes 4 or 5 day layover. Oh, it's like you're in jail. No, I understand the whole pandemic, and I've got my own views about that. I'm not going to share here. But it's just not fair. Why give Anchorage make Anchorage an exception and this is just not a level field. It's just not the way things work. So no, not cool.
Yeah, I quite agree, Rick. And the fact that, of course, Cathay seem to be being given beneficial treatment, it's often been the way. In Hong Kong, they're considered Hong Kong's airline, even Cathay, of course, are finding this restriction on their own pilots in Hong Kong, the amount of time they have to isolate after a flight, impossible or nearly impossible to run. It looks like the restrictions were put in place without real consultation with the airline, because if Cathay had turned around and said, well, that means in 2 months we're going to run out of aircrew, we're able to operate at all, they might have rethought it. But
I really don't know how, with just what you would normally expect to do in terms of scheduling, you could have a 14-day quarantine and then an additional 7 days of medical surveillance. No one would ever be able to fly. That's 21 days of
apart
some
from
sort of scrutiny.
The nightmare.
So you could fly for a week and then spend
Yeah.
the next 3 weeks quarantining and being under medical surveillance.
Yeah,
There's not
I
enough
remember.
pilots to go around for that.
Exactly.
I remember watching Cool Hand Luke, and I don't think even he spent that much time in quarantine.
Good point.
Oh man, I tell you, that's just ridiculous. I don't know.
Okay. Thank you, Robert, for sending that in, and I had no idea that was going on. It'll be interesting to see how this is resolved. Next item, FAA proposes civil penalties against 2 passengers for allegedly interfering with flight attendants. So just imagine you're hearing down, 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 the cops, bad boys thing.
I was actually going to ask you if you were going to play that a bunch during today's news section, because there's a couple in a row here that...
Except lately, just about every darn thing I play, YouTube objects to. So I'm just not going to do it anymore.
We'll just let Jeff sing his own version then.
Yeah, you just have to pretend like.
Just make sure it
maybe
doesn't
if you
sound too
listen to
much
the
like
audio,
it, because they'll take that off too. So
Yeah. That's true. Anyway, the U.S. Department of Transportation's Federal Aviation Administration proposes civil penalties of $20,000 and $12,250 against 2 passengers for allegedly interfering with and, in one case, assaulting flight attendants who instructed them to wear face masks and obey various federal regulations. The cases are as follows. Again, this is from the FAA.gov, their news release. $20,000 against a passenger on December 27th, 2020. JetBlue Airlines flight from Boston to Puerto Rico. The FAA alleges the passenger failed to comply with flight attendant's instructions to wear her face mask and remain seated with her seatbelt fastened. The passenger shoved a flight attendant multiple times in her chest and shoulder area, shouted obscenities at the flight attendant, and threatened to have her fired. As a result of the passenger's behavior, the captain diverted the flight back to Boston.
So that worked out really well for the passenger.
Oh, yeah. I'm sure it did.
Get you fired. No, we're going to take you back to Boston. Have a nice time.
And you're
fine
screwing
you.
everybody else on this flight
That-
at the same time. A $12,250 fine against a passenger also in December of 2020. JetBlue Airlines flight from New York, another JetBlue flight from New York to the Dominican Republic. The FAA alleges the passenger failed to comply with flight attendant's instructions to wear his face mask, stop drinking from his personal bottle of alcohol, which is prohibited by FAA regulations, and hand over the bottle. After flight attendants issued the passenger a, quote, notice to cease objectionable behavior card. I mean, we all get that.
Is that like a red card in soccer or something?
Yeah,
There's like
it's-
yellow
never
card.
heard of that
Like
before.
stop.
And I think they get a yellow one first, and then
Yellow first. I know. I
got a
messed
yellow.
it. I messed it up.
I was trying to make a joke out of your joke.
I'm sorry.
He shouted profanities at them, slammed overhead bins, got down on the floor, and then they brought a stretcher, and he pretended that his leg was hurt. And then he no, wait a minute, that actually is.
Yeah,
football
that's
that I'm
on the
talking
soccer
about.
field. Yes.
On the soccer field. He shouted profanities at them, slammed overhead bins, and became more and more uncooperative and agitated.
That's
During
also
landing
on the
phase-
soccer field.
That's a lot of this kind of transferred. During the landing phase of flight, including when the plane was taxiing to the gate, the passenger stood up while the fasten seatbelt sign was illuminated, threw his bottle of alcohol behind a seat.
What a waste.
And
Unless it was
I
empty
know.
already.
I think it must have been empty.
Probably.
And then went to the lavatory. As a result of the passenger's behavior, the flight crew requested that law enforcement meet the aircraft at the gate. They. I don't. Though Liz is making a very good point. She says, "How is he supposed to drink his alcohol with his mask on?"
Exactly.
Right?
Good point. Yeah, yeah.
Very
I'm
good.
going to put it back on as soon as I finish my personal bottle of alcohol.
Well,
Yeah,
it
exactly
might
right.
be the reason his fine was not quite as much as the female passenger's fine because of that
Could
restriction.
be. And Lane in the chat room says that red card comes with a parachute. That's wrong. Yellow card comes with a parachute. Red card comes without a parachute.
Oh, no.
Oh, no.
Ah.
Stay tuned for Plain Tales later on.
Yes. It all ties in
little,
somehow.
little teaser.
Little
there. I
foreshadowing,
like it.
yeah.
Oh, yeah, dispatcher Tom Dugan. He's an Acme dispatcher. My regional actually had yellow and red cards for passenger behavior. Huh, that's funny. When he,
I've
What about
never heard of that
colourblind
before.
passengers? Did anyone think of that?
no, it's probably spelled out. This is a yellow card.
From another country.
Probably just like offensive smelling or pointy things on it, something tactile or otherwise.
Picture of someone going, blah.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, staying along with the bad passenger behavior theme.
Oh, not another one.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
This is a good one. Well, actually a bad one. Wednesday morning's United Airlines flight from Newark to Miami, flight 728, diverted to Charleston due to one passenger's awful behavior. This is from, again, 1 Mile at a Time blog. 45-year-old John Yurkovich is the man behind the attack on several other passengers. WCSC reports on the content of the police reports about the incident. Yurkovich got up to use the bathroom and returned a short while later, but appeared to be agitated. At that point, he became restless and bounced around his seat. Yurkovich then asked for some water from a flight attendant and then retrieved pills from the overhead bin. Yurkovich then sat down and began to scream and thrash around. Yurkovich's seatmate held his arm up to protect himself, but ended up being struck with a closed fist on the side of his face, causing his glasses to break, and he also suffered a laceration to his ear as the man tried to bite it off.
This reminds me of one of our Czech captains.
What?
What? One of your Czech captains?
Yeah, one
kind of-
of our training captains. Yeah, yeah.
Continue
he
with
did
the story. You
Scream
have
and
peeked her-
thrash around. Oh no, I
Oh,
couldn't.
try to
couldn't
bite
possibly.
someone's ear off?
Yeah, he hits people and screams at them and thrashes around in the
You-
jump seat.
Certainly you're joking.
Not entirely.
Not entirely. Okay. Okay. Metaphorically, he does that. Okay. Other passengers intervened to try to restrain the man. A second victim was struck by Yurkovich, and that may have caused a broken nose. A third victim was punched in the head as well. At this point, other passengers helped to restrain Yurkovich, and a physician even administered a shot of Benadryl in the man's bottom to help sedate him. The police
I
officer-
misread that. I thought it was administered a shot of brandy in the man's butt. So,
Yeah, I'm not
I'm
sure.
not sure
Really?
what effect that would have, but
I was
Probably
exactly
takes
what
some
I was
time.
thinking. So I was going to ask you what that
it's
would do to
it's a
someone.
lesser known treatment for agitation. But if you dig deep into the medical manuals, you'll find it in there.
Oh, fair enough. Fair enough. Benadryl. What does that do for you?
It's
Well, it's an
diphenhydramine,
antihistamine, isn't it?
but it also has a side effect of causing you to be a little bit on the sleepy side, potentially.
It must have been a very large shot.
Yeah. I wouldn't think that Benadryl would have that kind of effect, but I guess it must. I don't know.
If that's all you got to try, I don't know. Sure.
Yeah. When police officers boarded the plane in Charleston, they found Yurkovich face down on the floor of the aircraft, being restrained with zip ties and belts, had his hands tied behind his back, and his face was covered by a shirt. He was arrested and has been arrested and charged, but not for his assault on other passengers. Rather, he was charged with possession with intent to distribute methamphetamine.
Methamphetamines.
I'm sorry, methamphetamine.
Looks
Why
like
do
I
always
picked
say
the
that?
wrong week
Meth-
to quit methamphetamines.
Methamphetamine. Police found 1.5 grams of white crystal substance in his pocket, which tested positive for methamphetamine. Yurkovich disputed the meth charge. This is his quote. "It's not what they say it is. It's a cat tranquilizer, actually. It's not what they're saying it is." Okay. His bond
I
was
mean,
set
I
at
bet it
50,000.
works as a. I don't know that meth acts as a cat tranquilizer.
I would have gone with "It's Not Mine" like Austin Powers.
It's not mine.
So the guy who had his ear
Honestly.
bitten, he's not pressing charges? I can't believe that.
I don't know.
Hopefully, he is.
Amazing.
Yeah. Maybe he's consulting with a lawyer as we speak. Okay. Well, there you go. Bad passenger behavior all around for everyone.
So
they're doing a Mike Tyson,
I'm just
attempt.
interested. Any of you have cats, and are you giving them meth? How do you pronounce that?
Methamphetamines.
Are you giving them that?
No.
Do
Catnip works fine to get them a little riled up.
Can you
but-
imagine? Can you imagine a cat on meth?
Holy.
Yeah,
No.
that would have the opposite effect.
The
I think.
opposite of
Actually,
Yeah.
I don't know. If I'm not a veterinarian. I'm going to preface this, but you can give dogs Benadryl to help them calm down. Wonder if you could do the same for cats, as they did with this gentleman. So
maybe.
Oh, there you go.
Okay. I'm sorry. What did you say, Liz? Oh, Rob Hamish T. Haggis, a cat tranquilizer, maybe like ketamine, another widely abused drug. I don't know.
Well, doesn't
You
seem
mean
cat.
cat-
I don't.
Oh, very funny.
You know, if only we could go back to the days when everyone travelled in jet aircraft wearing their suit and tie. I think all these problems might go away.
Oh yeah, I'm with you there, Nick. 100%. I was watching
Bring back the classiness.
old timey videos of just American Airlines Astrojets, and when Braniff was still around. I'm talking the early '60s and the first the advent of the 707 and the first flight across the Atlantic on Pan Am and all that. And it's just people were so well behaved and so well dressed.
Oh,
It was an event.
absolutely.
It was just
Yeah.
so.
Well, and it
so
also
nice.
probably cost a whole lot more for those tickets. So
Yeah.
if you're going to
Yeah,
spend
yeah,
that
yeah.
kind of money, you're going to enjoy the, the process, not just like glorified bus ride from point A to point B
Yep.
while you're in your pajamas and.
Sadly,
With
I
your
don't
own
think
pillow.
we're ever going to go back to those days. Oh well. All right. Finally, last item in our news notebook here. A Trigana Boeing 737-400 freighter, registration Papa Kilo Yankee Sierra Foxtrot, performing a freight flight from Jakarta Halim to Makassar, Indonesia, with 4 crew, was climbing out of Halim's runway 24 at 10:53 local time when the crew stopped the climb at about 3,000 feet due to problems with the right-hand main gear. The crew entered a hold while attempting to correct the problem and subsequently returned to Halim Airport for a landing on runway 24 at about 11:28, about 35 minutes past departure. So I got a little bit of video to share with you. You can see what happened after they went up and held and worked the landing gear issue. right, let me go over here to video file and boom, open. Okay. Now we're watching the airplane coming in for landing. And then, looks like it's listing a bit on the right side and skidding on its right engine pod. And yeah, just scraping the runway with the right engine nacelle and continuing down past the person that has the camera. And then it kind of slides a little bit to the right of runway heading at the end, kind of slides off the...
Nearly made the turn off.
Almost. Just good point. Almost got it. And a little bit of smoke, but I think that's not fire at this point. I think it's just from all the friction of the airplane on the runway. Here's a picture of the aftermath of the freight 737 skidding off the runway. And they finally got some firefighting equipment out there and started spraying some water on it. But anyway. Liz is making the point there's probably going to be a first officer lawsuit.
Exactly.
In this.
Standard.
The standard first officer lawsuit after a procedure.
Traumatic
that we've been,
incident.
Trained for over.
Nobody
and over
told me something like this could happen.
Yep.
No. I'm going to start getting those anonymous phone calls saying, have you had an accident on your aircraft in the last 24 hours?
Call 1-800
Injury.
Injury.
Exactly.
PTSD lawyers for you.
Okay, so let's see. Following touchdown, the aircraft skidded on the runway and rolled out. Aircraft veered off right. Missed the turnoff, as Nick said. No injuries. The aircraft sustained substantial damage. Weather looked like it was pretty decent. And anyway, I think the crew did a good job based on their scenario of keeping the airplane mostly on the runway. The aircraft is going to
absolutely.
suit.
Because,
Yeah.
you never know quite how this is going to work out. Generally speaking, these are usually well managed. But of course, if you do leave the runway without even with a wheel, you could inflict a lot of damage in the aircraft. You can bust fuel tanks, and there's always a risk of fire. So, I always breathe a sigh of relief when I see one of these, and the result has been no significant injuries. So, well done, guys.
Absolutely. All right. That's it for the news in this episode. And it's time to get to know us. And I'm not going to sing and screw up any lyrics this week.
No.
Because you guys are just so mean to me when I try.
It's just constructive criticism, Jeff.
Yeah,
We just
that's-
want you to be
yes,
better.
Steph's the one that's the mean one.
It was me.
Thought I'd have to point that out.
Oh.
Yeah.
Because I didn't make any mistakes ever.
No.
Ever.
Perfect.
Ever. All right. So that's the time of the show where we kind of talk about what has been happening with each of us and let's see, was it Thursday? It's been about almost exactly a week, I think. Or was it? Yep.
Yep. Exactly.
Liz, our producer director, is saying, yes, it was a week ago that we had our last show. So who would like to go first with telling us about what's been happening with them?
Nick does.
Nick does.
Oh, well, it'll be short and sweet.
Okay.
What can a man in lockdown say other than I drove my little sports car to the local town for an essential journey, and it was like being released from jail. It was lovely.
A sentimental journey?
No, it was essential. It was sentimental, yes, essential. But as I had my wife on board, hence the reason for the journey, she wasn't feeling up to driving. So we set off down the road. And, I'm kind of a bit deaf, or you may not know, I'm kind of a bit deaf. 45 years of listening to whining jet engines.
You know what the difference is between a flight attendant crew and a
you do want to finish that one, Jim?
The ice.
I'm just wondering if you knew. I don't know.
I don't.
Yeah.
No.
We don't
As
know,
it turns
actually.
out, I do,
don't
yes.
know. I fly
Please,
cargo.
Mac,
I have no idea.
Yes, that's true. That's very true. And as we're going down the road, she said, "What's that awful noise?" And she wound the window down. I'm going, "What noise?" And as I slowed up a bit, I could hear this from one side of the car. So I went, "Oh my God." So I pulled over and had a good look around. It sounded like we were trailing a lump of metal in one of the wheels. And had a good look around, couldn't see anything, so we carried on. And the noise carried on. When you're going fast, it sounded dreadful. Anyway, got to the car park, dropped her off, and I had a good look, and I thought, I think I know what this is. So I took the car up the freeway, the motorway that's near me. And in a clear stretch, I was hammering the brakes and then accelerating and hammering the brakes. And I managed to polish all the rust off the brake discs.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Really?
'Cause my car, absolutely. My car been sitting there for, I don't know, 3-4 months, hardly moving. And
Jeez.
those big steel discs, of course, they just sit and rust because they're not rust proof. So, yeah, a few firm applications of the pads and polish them clean again so the noise went away.
Wow.
Well, at least the tires weren't flat on one side, so.
You didn't have
Well,
flat
that's
spots?
true.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. The battery wasn't flat, so that was good. So, yeah. So that was my one moment of relief, other than taking the dogs for a walk. The local army ground is shut because they're doing driver training on it, which means I get in my Volvo and take the dogs out down there. And we took a few pictures in this pretty area, one of which is behind me. It's absolutely gorgeous, the little spot I go to, very quiet, and it's a deep, we would call it a dell. It's just a natural indentation, natural dish in the ground, big, full of old trees, and lots of lakes, little lakes there, and very green, overgrown, not often visited. So, as if you stray off the main paths, then you're in, very natural countryside, and great for photography, absolutely gorgeous. So enjoying that, getting to grips with the new camera, and then of course trying to find someone with a New Jersey accent. That was my other main job this week, and I have to thank Hillel for getting out of the shower and bringing his friend Ivan to the microphone. So
Was Ivan in the shower too?
I don't know where Ivan was. He might have
Okay.
been in the shower, but
Okay.
I don't know. Perhaps we can ask Hillel when he comes on later and
Well, what is
ask
this,
him if he's...
TMI? Too much information?
Could be. But Ivan, despite his name, has a wonderful New Jersey accent. So when you hear the plane tell later, you'll know.
Oh, good.
Thanks to
Hey,
both of them.
well, we need to know. Last week you were having some electrical issues going on. How did you get that resolved?
Yes, my spacecraft engineer came round. He's highly overqualified for a job like this. Thank you. And we switched the correct wire. That was part of the problem. I was switching the wrong wire, but when all the wires are black, it's a bit hard to tell. We got that fixed. The only problem was, lovely Matt is not a small man, and we had a wooden stool for him to stand on so he could get in the larder up to the ceiling, and the whole thing just shattered underneath him, which it really wasn't supposed to do, but it's a bit elderly, and I glued it together a couple of times. So this fine gentleman who's got about 10 years on me, ended up collapsing inside the larder. I shouldn't laugh. I felt so sorry for him. Could do me a favour. Anyway, no
Hope
damage
he doesn't
done.
watch the show.
Yeah, well, it's true, and I apologise profusely. And would you believe, this just shows what a lovely guy he is. 2 days later, he came round with a replacement stool for me.
Oh, what a nice
That
guy.
is
He'd ordered
nice.
one better than the one we had before, and came round on his motorbike. He still rides a motorbike at his age, and gave me this and said, "Oh, this is. I'm so sorry for breaking your."
Oh, really? He
felt bad.
apologized to you?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going.
You should
"Rah."
apologize and say, "Would you
I
please not
tried
sue
to,
me?"
but You know, he's one
PTSD
of
that's gonna really
nature's
bring him
gentlemen. So he's a fine chap. So thanks very much, mate.
Oh man.
Oh man. Okay. Well, good. Good. Had a happy ending.
It did. Unlike
Rick.
most massages.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. So obviously you're in your mobile studio in DALLAS or whatever that song said at the
D
beginning.
little
Double
A,
D
double
sounds
LAS.
better.
Well, yeah, that's something entirely different. That's a different show. So
After show.
After
show,
After show.
yeah. So what you doing in Dallas, Texas, sir?
Well, just bringing people their Amazon stuff. Got in yesterday night after dealing with a little bit of weather, a little line of weather. But apparently, the temperature starts warming up a little bit, and all of a sudden, convective activity
Yep.
comes right back, and so made for an interesting descent, approach, and landing. Well, the landing wasn't that bad, but it was just getting down from the high 30s down to about 10,000 feet. It was a little tricky because it was this big line of thunderstorms from the northwest to the southeast. Trying to navigate through that was interesting, but we made it no problem. And since today, the last week, so I recorded the morning I came in from Kona, I believe, and then I went home. I spent a couple of days at home, and then right back out on the road to Rockford up in Illinois, which was interesting because usually we land to the east into Rockford. It's an ILS to runway 7 there. And the prevailing winds were for 2.5, which has an RNAV approach, which is always nice to practice because it's not something that we do all the time unless you're in the simulator. So specific procedure to key the approach in and make sure that you have the correct autopilot modes and all that, and turned into a visual approach, which is nice because I like to click those off and just fly manually when I can. Paired up with this great FO, new FO to the company, just off OE, very professional, flies very, very well. Came from Qantas Airlines a couple of months ago, and he's adapting nicely. And then been doing that. And where else did I go? So I'm looking at my schedule here because you know how trips kind of mesh together.
Did you go to like Stockton or something like that? And there was
Yeah,
really
yeah,
high crosswinds or something?
Yeah, that's right. We ended up in Stockton. Fighting the Santa Anas there. It was I was a little interesting. I don't know what it is with the winds in California, but yeah, Stockton. It was a little windy. It was funny at 1,500 feet. The wind was still straight crosswind, something like 35 knots, and then by the time we landed, we touched down with about a 25 knot crosswind component. It's not too bad, but makes for a fun landing. And that was that. And then after Stockton, right out here to Dallas, and here I am. I'll be on the road till the 4th, so it's gonna be a little while before I get to go back home. But it is what it is. I'm not suing for that.
Well, maybe you should.
Down the road, you're going to have some PTSD. Just so
I
you
know. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. All right. Well, good. Good to have you with us again on the show. And also, good to have Steph with us. What's up, Steph?
Yes.
Well, speaking of things being a little windy, I feel like that's been the story of the weather around here. Either low overcast or lowish overcast and winds. It's very frustrating for aviation-related activities or sky-related activities. So since I talked to you last, we were planning to fly and jump all weekend, and Saturday it was sunny, blue skies. Very deceptive because it was quite gusty, but it wasn't steady winds. So it would be dead calm, like 0 winds, and then 2 seconds later, a gust to about 25 knots, and then calm again. And kind of variable headings too. So that doesn't make for good jumping conditions. Not great flying conditions either, to be honest. Not in general aviation aircraft. And so we didn't do anything on Saturday. And then Sunday it was windy again, not quite as bad, but overcast at about 4,000 feet, which is really not quite high enough to even send up those hop and pop loads that we like to do. And it finally cleared up a little bit towards the end of the day, and we were able to do 4 loads of jumpers, which was disappointing after what should have been a really busy weekend.
How much would
but
you
it-
have in a normal day?
Oh, we probably could have done 20 loads of
Wow.
jumpers a day.
It's a lot.
It might not have been that busy in March,
Yeah.
but certainly in the summer, yeah. Longer daylight hours. Also disappointing, we didn't even fly on Saturday, but I was retrieving a headset from the Otter and took a funny step back off of the, just getting out of the airplane. Not jumping, plane on the ground, not moving. There's a step that's probably about chair height off the ground, just for reference. Got out of the plane the same way I always do and just managed to kind of hyperextend my knee, twisted it, fell down. Kind of gross. Made a gross sound, and now it's all swollen. It doesn't hurt, but it's very swollen. So that's disappointing also. It's getting better. I haven't had any issue like walking on it, but I haven't tested it running or anything. So
Yeah.
on top of
Did
all
they
the
give
not
you
running.
a breath alcohol test, Steph?
They did not.
Maybe they should.
Maybe.
Yeah, just
Well,
curious.
Liz is saying lawsuit.
No, that was just, I don't even, I'm still trying to figure out exactly what happened because my foot, like the foot itself was probably only 6 inches off the ground when I let my other foot off of that, like the step. So I'm struggling to figure out how I managed to do that, but I had injured this knee previously when I was a teenager, trampoline related thing. So I assume it's something to maybe do with that still. I don't know, but it is getting better. Yeah, what else? That's about it. So, no flying, now no running, no jumping.
Oh,
It's been a fun week.
sad.
Oh man.
Well, we'll see what this
Now,
weekend
now that you
brings.
talk about all the knee issues and all that stuff, I mean, I tell you that the most dangerous part of my day is when I, take the steps up to the jet, and then at the end of the flight, take the steps down the jet. And I'm so careful, especially when it's wet and windy and rainy out. It's like you have to just inch your way down or up, because otherwise
Are they
imagine
metal
taking a
usually?
spill from the top of those stairs all the way down.
Oh, yeah.
You could, man.
Are they like the air stairs kind of stairs, or are they like a ladder thing that you got to get on?
No, they're air stairs, and some of them have corrugated steps. And it kind of depends on. Sometimes it's just your standard FBO steps, but still, I mean, a flight of stairs is a flight of stairs. So
Yeah.
Sometimes I see these older gentlemen carrying their bags up. and it's
Steady.
And
He did call them gentlemen, though.
and then the problem is they get on their cars and their brakes make all sorts of weird noises. So you just never know. So
Yeah, well, we like to call it the brakes, but it's probably something else.
One of the advantages of losing your hearing is that when the brakes have that high squealing noise, you can't hear it.
Yeah,
Your kids go, "Dad, what's that squealing noise?" I don't hear anything.
yeah.
yeah, that's right.
Everything sounds good to me. All right. Last week I was in the midst of a trip, a Tuesday through Friday trip, so I guess that was my third day, and came home the following day, Friday, and was home for a full day on Saturday, and then on Sunday, it was either Saturday night or Sunday morning, whatever, I noticed that the availability of crews to fly trips that kind of pop up in what we call open time, or the pot, the what do we call it? Trip pot? No. Anyway, available trips that need to be covered. I noticed one was sitting there. It was a 4-day that left on Sunday. Normally I don't fly on Sundays because I usually am singing at church, but this past weekend I was not. By the way, I do get to start singing again coming up. Well, let's see. Today is what, Thursday? So Saturday, yeah. So I'm back in the club, the singing club. But anyway, I thought, well, I should take advantage of the fact that I don't need to be at church on Sunday, and looked at that 4-day trip, and I'm thinking, kind of looks to me like they may not have enough pilots, enough captains to cover this trip. So I thought, just for the heck of it, I'm going to put in a request for what we call a green slip, which is a overtime flying request. Basically, the trip gets paid double pay. And I got a call and said, "Hey, are you interested in flying this 4-day trip?" And this is all electronic now. It's an app that they send the stuff out, and you can look at the trip. And I went, yeah, I'd be interested in flying. Oh, it was Saturday, actually, now that I'm thinking about it, because on Saturday I met up with Robert Hamish, and who was with us he was with us in the chat room earlier. I'm assuming he's still there. But he has some family in the area, and said he was going to be in town, and if I were around and wanted to, we could get together. And we ended up meeting up in Alpharetta at a craft beer place. And so we grabbed a bite to eat in the early afternoon and had some good beer. Anyway, yeah, the reason why I'm saying it, this all happened, the trip assignment happened around that time, I think, right before I met up with Robert. And so I left on Sunday. Now, the downside, well, many of you who have been listening to me for years understand that I don't really like flying at night, or I do fly during dark hours, but it's usually early in the day, like, before the sunrise. But flying into the evening is just not my thing. Yeah, I would make a terrible freight pilot because that's where you spend most of your time, right? Flying at night.
I love it.
So, and when I was younger and my eyes were better, I was more comfortable flying at night. But now that I'm a little bit older and eyesight is not like it was when I was in my 20s and 30s, I just feel more comfortable flying in the daylight. Anyway, this thing flew into the late evening on Sunday night. It was 5 flights. They're short flights. They were like Atlanta, Nashville, back to Atlanta, and then Birmingham, Atlanta, and then Little Rock. So that was the first day. I have to tell you, that kind of not knocked me out, but that was more strenuous than I remembered. Normally I fly maybe 3 flights in a day. And so that was a very long day. And now the flights have a little bit more time built in between them. And so that makes it even a longer day. And the reason that they've built in this extra time, of course, is because of the pandemic and all the cleaning procedures that they're doing and fogging the airplane in between each flight. And they're really doing a very thorough job of cleaning these airplanes. So that just extends it. I think I think the sign-in time was around 12:26 in the afternoon, and finally got to Little Rock at 11:30 Little Rock time. So 12. It was like about a 12-hour day basically. But the weather was good, so that really helped. And then the next day, just did 2 legs to Myrtle Beach and was there for 2 nights. So on Tuesday, didn't do a thing, didn't do any flying at all. And then on Wednesday, just went to Atlanta and then did a Melbourne, Florida turn, and that was it. So it was overall pretty nice trip, and I think 10 flights all said and done, and got paid double for it. So I was pretty pleased with that. So that is what I have done since the last episode. And as I mentioned, the highlight of all that was getting together with Robert Fairbairn, and who is in the chat still. Hey, there you are. He's still here. Had a great time. It was a little chilly. They had like a tent set up in front of the building itself, and they had some what do they call those gas burner things that are heat lamps or whatever inside there, but they weren't very effective.
They're called climate changers.
Climate changers, yeah. The wind, it was very windy. If it weren't for all the wind, it would have been very comfortable. But Robert and I were layered up and layered, I said, and it was still kind of chilly inside that tent. We did keep trying to put in as much what would you call it, refrigerant, or what do they call what do you put in your car to keep it from freezing?
Vodka.
Antifreeze.
No, that's only if you're in Russia.
We put in vodka, same thing. We put in a lot of antifreeze to keep our insides as warm as possible. But
that's what vodka's for.
Yeah. And in this case, it was some higher gravity beers. Yeah. So anyway, had a great time talking with, getting caught up with Robert. And did you get your shot, Robert? He was supposed to get that on Monday, I think. So anyway, and if so, where are you? Are you still in town, or are you? Well, this is probably not the place for us to have a personal conversation. So I should probably
No.
move on.
By all means, carry on. We'll just
No,
wait.
yeah.
It's fine.
We're just flies on the wall here. Go for it.
Okay. I'm sorry. Completely forgot where I was and what I was doing. So, and I do mention to a lot of people that as I do the show, and it's like getting together with good friends. Yeah, there's the squirrel. I get together with my good friends every week, and we talk mostly about aviation stuff. And yeah, we make a show out of it. But really, it's just an excuse for us to get together and kind of hang out with each other and have fun every week. So that is it from me. And I'm off until April 6th or something like that. So I have vacation this next week for Holy Week, and I'm going to be doing a lot of singing at the church, and that's it. So with that, I think we should move on to the Coffee Fund, and here we go.
Johnny, how much more coffee?
No thanks.
I love coffee, I love tea, I love the APG community, coffee and tea, and the Java and me. A cup, a cup, a cup, a cup, a cup. Oh yeah, the Coffee Fund. It's your way, dear listener, to support the show financially. There are a lot of ways to support us. Be part of our community, send in feedback, all that kind of stuff. But if you have the resources, the financial resources to do so, it would be great if you join these other great people who are part of the Coffee Fund cadre. A couple different ways to join us in the Coffee Fund. The first, the Coffee Fund Classic, via basically a PayPal donation page. You can do a one-time donation or a recurring donation. And we have Chris Randall, David Lieb, Wilfred Bog, and Vigner Ornwanason. They use the Coffee Fund Classic method to contribute. Thank you, gentlemen, for doing that. And the other way to support us via the Coffee Fund is to become a patron of the show via Patreon. And let's see, we have a new producer. He actually invented the autopilot. His name is Glenn Otto. So that's kind of cool. And, you'd think that he would be a higher level producer based on all the money he's getting from, the whatever, all the airlines buying these autopilots. Anyway, and I know, bad joke. Also, Wolfgang S., the father of Marcus S., who became an executive producer last week. Wolfgang, remember, Honeywell, I believe, works in the aviation industry, and Wolfgang is the one that actually got Marcus involved with listening to our show. So he is a new executive producer. So thank you, Wolfgang, for joining. A father and son kind of a team there. That's awesome. So thank you very much for that. So, pardon me? Oh yeah, Liz says, keeping it in the family. So if you're interested in becoming a patron of the show, or you would like to become or just participate in the Coffee Fund cadre via the classic method, all that is information on that is all on our website, airlinepilotguide.com. I'm losing the ability to speak. airlinepilotguide.com/coffee. There we go. Okay. That is it. Wow. I was doing so well at the beginning there, and then just fell off a cliff at the very end. Oh, well. Do I need a break? Yeah, I
think
do.
you might.
No, hey, how about everybody else?
Either
Everybody else
caffeine
okay?
or beer. That one of those things will help
Yeah,
you.
one of the two.
Beer
I'm good.
would be good. I think I can hold off until the plain tail for the beer. So why don't we just keep on moving on? Unless you need to take a break, Rick.
Yeah, give me 2 seconds. I'm just going to put a cup of coffee on because it's a little nippy in here. Give me
Okay.
2 minutes.
Well, then, in that case, I'm going to go and grab a beer. So I'll be right back.
All right, sounds good.
So, Steph,
Yep.
what's the difference between a pilot and a pepperoni pizza?
Oh my gosh. I have no idea.
pepperoni pizza can feed a family of 4.
Now, surely you rich airline pilot types don't fall in
Yeah.
that category.
Well, I think there are an awful lot of not so rich airline pilot types at the moment. Who built the airplane that couldn't fly?
You're going to have to tell me.
The Wrong brothers.
Oh, that makes sense. Do you see where didn't they have, weren't they carrying around a little piece of the original Wright Flyer on Mars this week or something?
Oh, were
Did you see
they?
that? Yeah, I'll have to send you
No,
that.
I didn't. Oh, unbelievable. I mean, those guys, they never miss a trick. That's fantastic.
I'll see if I can find that
Yeah.
story and send it to you.
Superb. What happens
Oh, yeah,
to
for the
that
Mars
aero-
helicopter. It was for the helicopter. It was like
Have
flying
they
it around
actually
like a little
flown
banner.
it? I saw the airfield and their planned sort of area, but I
don't
didn't
know,
think they
maybe
were going to
the
fly it for a couple of weeks yet.
Producer can help us out because I'm not. I've only been watching it. Like I've been catching like glimpses of the news. Nice big ass glass there, Jeff.
Thanks for noticing.
Ha ha ha.
And I'm putting a nice Sierra Nevada beer.
So here's
What
one for you,
happens
Nick.
to... Go on then.
Why was Pavlov's hair so soft?
Because dogs kept drooling on it.
I don't know. I have to wait for iHall boxes to tell me the answer to it, and hopefully it's not
Waiting
dirty.
for the punchline.
Oh, okay.
Why was Pavlov's hair so soft? I'll have to think about that a little bit longer.
About 30
But not
seconds
too
longer,
long.
probably. Nah, lost interest. Go with because he conditioned it.
Bam.
Very good. Ladies and gentlemen, I have good news and bad news. The bad news is we're lost. The good news is we're making good time.
Yes.
Standard PA.
That's so true. Yes. We're not sure where we are, but we're making great time. Great shots there. Is that also in that dell that you were in? The photo that I
Absolutely.
see?
There are a couple of ridges there that, and for a considerable distance. They're these beautiful, intricate root systems, all covered in pristine moss. Well, at least it was until Rugger sat on it, then it wasn't pristine anymore.
No, not pristine. Don't need
So
to
no,
go
this was
into
from-
further detail.
Tuesday that Liz just sent us. Ingenuity Mars helicopter prepares for the first flight on another planet.
There you go.
So I don't know if they did or not, but
Cool.
yep, they have a postage stamp sized piece of the fabric that covered one of the wings from the Wright brothers flyer attached beneath the
That's
helicopter's
superb.
solar banner.
So is the gravity on Mars a lot higher than on Earth, or is it?
No, lower.
Less. It's
Lower?
a smaller
Okay.
planet.
Yeah. But
Oh,
the
that's right.
atmosphere is very thin,
Also that.
what there is of it.
But it's not like as little as the moon's.
I don't.
No, I
believe so.
want to say on. There's some calculator. So, like, if you weigh 100 pounds on Earth, you weigh like 65 pounds on Mars or something.
So
Does that
about
sound right?
65%.
70 pounds. Yeah, 70%. 65%. Someone will correct me on that for being not quite right, but that's.
So
something
if
that I
you were
remember.
wearing loafers, you'd be light in the loafers on Mars.
Oh, there you go.
Bam.
What's a
Well,
loaf?
I thought it was funny.
Is that where you clean yourself in the bath?
Oh,
with?
I'm sorry. I was totally wrong. A 100-pound person would weigh 38 pounds on Mars. So it's only 38%.
Well, that's quite
Wasn't
low.
it? Oh, 38. Yeah, that's considerable.
It's brewing.
No, not a loofah. Loafer. A loafer is a type of shoe. Nick,
You wear bread on your feet? What's the matter with you people?
I don't know why we try.
Bread?
Bread? A loaf of bread?
It's
A
not even
loafer?
worth trying to explain why we're doing this.
Is that where they come? Excuse me. Is that where the name comes from?
Yeah. Okay. What do you think, Rick? You ready?
Yes, sir.
All right. And Liz, are we good? All right. Thank you. Whoa, who's that? Huh? Oh, that's Poppy. Okay. Everybody in the streamer looking at me like, what is he talking about? I just hear a dog barking in the background, and it's Poppy that I hear. Anywho, okay, here we go. Feedback. This is from Ryan. It says, hello. When I first found APG, I thought, who the heck has 3 hours to listen to a podcast with these titles? He doesn't like our titles, I guess. Then, after I heard 2 APG crew members interviewed by George Nolly, I realized how cool and entertaining you all are. Now, APG is the first 3 hours of podcast I listen to when your shows come out. Oh, very nice. Thank you for helping me be a more educated aviator. Sincerely, Ryan Ellison.
Well,
Yeah,
50% more educated.
At least 50%, more or less.
Yeah, the other 50% I'd ignore if I were you. Right?
Yes.
Could go either way.
The tough
Yep.
part is knowing which 50% to listen to and learn from and which 50% to throw
It's a
away.
little bit of a
point, but
crapshoot.
Let me
Yeah,
give
it
you a
is.
clue. The further the show goes on, the more I drink.
So it
And
gets
the
better.
less, yeah, the less
Might do,
you'll
might
probably
do.
learn. Anyway, Ryan sent us some audio feedback. You want to listen to it?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, here we go.
Hello, APG crew and APG community. My name's Ryan. I'm from the MSP area. I fly CRJs out of DFW, but today I'm a FNG, a feedback new guy, because of the flight from Minneapolis to Milwaukee via Duluth. While the ozone thing is a real limitation in the CRJ, it's rarely ever a factor flying in the lower 48 United States. What is the more likely explanation is that most CRJ flights are structurally limited weight for landing. So on a 900, you have to land below 75,100 pounds. So if you have too much gas that you don't need, and you can fly a flight from Minneapolis to Duluth, check out Lake Superior, burn a little extra gas, which will make the aircraft weigh less upon landing in Milwaukee. You don't have to defuel anything, which can take a couple hours. You get the on-time departure, on-time arrival, carry all the people and their bags, and everybody's happy. I really enjoy your show. I think you're making aviation safer and definitely in a more entertaining way. I appreciate the 2 cents on the topics and news, but since you're only going 50%, I guess it's only 1 cent. Keep up the great work.
Well, thanks for your 1 cent worth of feedback.
Funny guy.
We're keeping it. Keeping it. Not giving
Yeah.
it back.
I like it.
So,
is that Minnesota? He's from?
Minnesota, yeah.
Oh, okay.
So, okay, I'm thinking, well, then why take off with more fuel than you need? But then
That was gonna
say,
be my
I guess-
question.
So I guess
guess
perhaps there was an aircraft swap or
Yeah,
something.
that's
It
what I
was
was- yeah,
already
for all an
fueled for
aircraft
something
change,
else, and yeah,
it's going
that
to
was
take a
what
while to
came to mind.
defuel.
Yeah, and
I
they
can see
need the-
that, I guess.
That makes sense.
And sometimes you have to take off with more fuel because of like a takeoff alternate requirement or a destination alternate. But then it's kind of like a fine line, with having enough and then too much, because then you're over your max landing weight. So I guess in the past, with situations like this, you go to your destination and just hold like 30 miles out or whatever, and just hold for a while and burn up the gas. Maybe throw some drag out on the airplane to help get rid of the gas faster. But I guess makes sense. Just instead of doing holding patterns, just go fly up and do some sightseeing up in Duluth and the Great Lakes.
Sounds
Well,
more enjoyable.
actually, the passengers are likely to be less upset because they think they're making progress the whole time.
Yes.
Unless
Good
they're
point.
sitting back there
Yeah.
watching Flight Radar 24 going, I didn't think we were going to Canada today.
Exactly.
Excuse me, miss, would you please ask the pilots if they know where they're going?
That's where the captain's mum lives. I've already cracked that joke too many
I think-
times now.
Yeah, I think you did make that point earlier on, so you're probably right.
Now, I have
but
been a
we-
passenger on an aircraft that had to delay departure to burn fuel because we had too much fuel for
takeoff.
over our max takeoff weight.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
There are
Yeah.
yeah,
That happened at Heathrow, Nick. Just letting you know. So.
There you go. Those Heathrow refuelers, they're always very generous chaps.
Have a little extra. Oops.
They're just
Yep.
givers. Give.
A little extra for Mum.
There you go. Yeah, but I mean, oftentimes you will take off with more fuel than you need for that particular flight for all the reasons that we stated. But then there's another one when the price difference of the fuel where you
hold on
are
to that
versus
Hold on to that thought, Rick. There's some
Oh,
feedback
I see where you're going.
later
I
on
see.
that
I see.
kind of addresses specifically what you're just talking about right there.
Very nice, very nice.
So here we go. All right. Well, thank you, Ryan, for sending in the audio, and welcome to the APG. And thank if you talk to George, thank him for interviewing. By the way, have you had a chance to get on with George, Steph?
Nope, not yet.
Okay.
I will.
One of these days you're going to hear.
One of these days I will do that.
Steph on his show, and probably one of these days hear from Miami Rick as well. But I think it's been Nick and myself who have been interviewed by George Nolly on the Ready for Takeoff podcast.
All right.
Anyway. Okay. Let's continue with Captain Peter. He sent us in a couple of pieces of feedback here. We'll start with the first. Hello, Captain Jeff Crew. Episode 462 was a doozy, generating 2 feedbacks from me. There is not much flying for me at present, so idle hands. My second is regarding the audio feedback on the possibility of maintenance being an issue in the United... Oh, audio feedback. You sent audio feedback? Uh-oh. I don't see that in here. Oh, I see. Okay. So he is referring to audio feedback that we played on episode 462. Thank you, Liz, for straightening that. I was very confused. Anyway, he said the possibility of maintenance being an issue in the United 777 blade issue, and it reminded him of a time here at Acme East. Our newer 747s are Pratt & Whitney 4000 and GE Gen X powered. As an aside, these are the same Pratt & Whitney engines that rained blades over Belgium recently, and so at least one country we operate to will not allow these aircraft to take off or land there, only overfly. Well, still, they could, if they're overflying, there's still a chance
I
that
don't
they can
understand
get
the
blown
logic
up.
there. You can still drop stuff onto the ground from
Yeah.
here.
That's the way I'm looking at it, too. That's interesting. And then he says, I digress. Previously, all of our 747s were Rolls-Royce RB211 powered.
Well, there's your problem. I'm just kidding.
Hey, that's what powered my TriStar, and they did a great job.
Tell us how you really feel, Rick. Tell us how you really feel.
These were generally a reliable engine, although being 3-spooled were a little more sensitive to airflow upsets. We had no auto start, so had to be very vigilant with the starts. As I said, reliable until they were not. Around 10 years ago, we started having failures, and not just rundowns, bits of metal out the back kind. It wasn't affecting other airlines, so flight ops thought it must be the way we're operating and changed the start, takeoff, and climb procedures. Nothing helped. And at one stage, we were having 2 engines fail a month. Eventually,
The question
it was
is, did he sue because of PTSD?
he probably should.
You know?
And now that he's listened to the earlier
like,
news items, he's probably
light
thinking,
bulb.
Not working right
idle
now,
hands.
and you know.
Yeah. Eventually, it was traced to a bad batch of blades. Once this was rectified, all was back to normal. I was one of the crew caught up in this, and kindly the engineering department sent me the photos from the teardown. These clearly show what happens when blades let loose inside an engine. Not a pretty sight. And he sent, here, let me share these with you all so you can see some of the photos that he was sent. If I can get that. Okay, here we go. Share and share screen and application window and boom. Share. Okay. That is the first set. High pressure compressor stage 3 at the top. And then the middle section here, high pressure compressor stage 5. About 25 each blades, leading edge, minor damage. All right, let's see. I think there's more. Where is the... Wait, how do I do this? Huh, okay. Usually there's like a little arrow here that I can press and goes on to the next batch, but there's no arrow here. Okay, stop screen. Let me try this again. How about... anyway, he sent a whole bunch of these. Oh, this is pretty good. Here, I'll share this one. Okay. There we go. Okay. Look at that bottom 6 photos there. There's some
Good luck.
pretty
Looks like my teeth.
significant.
I was actually, this is a complete aside. You'll probably just want to remove this from the final edit. But when you just get the little thumbnail of what's in the feedback on Evernote, they kind of look like the way colonoscopy pictures print out.
Really?
Like the inside of someone's colon.
Captain Peter sent us his colonoscopy pictures.
I was scrolling. I was like, "What is?" Oh, okay. I had to like.
Well, wait a minute. Maybe these are his colonoscopy.
Colonoscopy pictures or fan blades?
Yeah.
You decide.
Wow.
Let's see. Here's another set. And now I see the little arrow. I see that over there. You can see that on the screen. And anyway, a whole bunch of blades with something with a lot of damage. Yeah. So there you go. Stop screen sharing and continue with Captain Peter's narrative. Well, that was it for that. No, there was more. On a lighter side, my wife happened to be sitting in the cockpit for the dawn arrival into Amsterdam when number 4 let go, a sight not many people outside the business see. She still
Isn't that a
reminds
coincidence?
me. Yeah, she still reminds me of my first comment after the lurch, bang, and red glow out the starboard window. What the black? I'm sorry. What the beep was that? So much for standard operating procedures. We did eventually start to sing from the correct hymn book. Keep the blue side up, Captain Peter. Yeah, I would imagine that things probably get a little crazy when one of the engines blows up and you go,
Yeah, that wasn't not that dramatic, but Chile came onto the flight deck just as we had a number 2 engine failure, finishing our oceanic crossing once coming back from New York.
Huh.
Oh, wow.
I blamed it on her.
Yeah. I'm sure it was all her fault.
It was.
Okay. Liz says, old wives' tales. I didn't say it.
Very good.
It was Liz.
Very good. I shall
All
tell
right.
Julie that.
And then Liz says, not that Julie's old.
Yeah.
All right. Also from Captain Peter, The Gift That Keeps Giving, a sad tale. Hi, crew. A few comments after listening and enjoying episode 462. Captain Nick, you are absolutely correct that 3% of the max takeoff weight, 447 tons, for the 747-8 is a large number when checking the weight and balance being approximately plus or minus 13 tons. So this is really a gross error check. As Captain Rick mentioned, the C of G check within 3% is probably the more important of the 2 items checked. Wonderful to also listen to Captain Nigel D's dissertation on the effects of the pandemic, especially on Cathay Pacific and Hong Kong. Working for Acme East, I cannot say I'm an expert on Cathay operations, although I will pass on some information that I've gleaned. Captain Nigel pointed out many of Cathay's problems. However, since his recording, time has moved on, and not for the better. Since the Hong Kong health authorities implemented a 3-week hotel quarantine for all arriving passengers and excluded completely those from so-called very high-risk countries, the UK being one of these, passenger numbers have fallen on Cathay's system from 100,000 per day to about 400, a total route. Wow, that's a huge difference. 100,000 to 400.
I mean, it's almost a negligible amount of passengers at that point, you know?
That's like, yeah, why bother?
That's
right?
nothing.
Captain Nigel pointed out that the only bright spot was the cargo section, and this was true up until 3 weeks ago when the health authorities enforced a 2-week hotel quarantine. We talked about this in the news segment, didn't we? On all local-based aircrew after overnighting anywhere, which in crewing terms is like a noose being forever tightened, as you will eventually run out of crew. On arrival into Hong Kong after my trip, or any trip, if not quarantined, for example, a turnaround, the crew are tested for COVID on arrival, after 7 days, after 12 days, after 15 days, and lastly, after 19 days, unless the crew work again, which restarts the cycle. A lesson in how to destroy aviation in a few easy steps. Also, to destroy the inside of your nose. Anyway, He says, always the blue side up. And then he sent us a picture. I think we have that in the overlays section, Liz, if you want to share that, the cockpit sunshine.
I had a feeling they were doing those swabs from the other end in China.
Well, maybe. Could be, actually. That's a nice picture that Captain Peter snapped from outside of the cockpit looking in and the sun rising, I'm guessing. Maybe so.
Is his first Delta dead?
Could be. He's kind of lurching off to the side.
Just curious. That's a lovely picture, though.
It's a good, beautiful picture, and you can tell it's a freighter because it has don't have a door, it has a curtain, which is just stowed off to the right there, and then
I didn't even notice that.
Yeah, and then
now, do you think that he removed all the registration and insurance and all those certificates that are usually in these little holder things before he took the picture, just to kind of eliminate any identification?
I don't know.
Just curious.
Perhaps they keep them in a folder. We used to do that.
Yeah, I'd probably keep them in a folder because if you look at the reflection on the second one, you can see the window, the reflection of the window on that second one there. So I don't know. But we keep them on there. We keep them on there.
Yeah, ours are kept like,
Do you have to put your captain's certificate at the top there, Rick, when you get on board?
Yeah.
Like Steph has her
diploma.
MD.
Yeah. You can remove the overlay. Liz.
Nah, I'll put my latest finger paint masterpiece up there.
I love the one that you did with the turkey with your hand.
You like that one?
Yeah, the Thanksgiving one. That's all.
Yeah, that was a good one. That one's still on the jet, I think. Yeah, it was,
nice. Pilot art. All right. Mm-hmm. Thank you, Captain Peter, for the feedback. We do appreciate it, and hopefully things start looking up for the better for you and your carrier. All right.
Absolutely.
Continuing. This is from, thank you, Liz. This is from Andy. He said, CVG, Cincinnati, not a focus city? As this incredibly detailed article explains, it looks like Delta is dumping KCVG, or Covington Field, basically northern Kentucky, but it is close to Cincinnati, Ohio, so they call it, most people call it Cincinnati, as a focus city after a long, happy marriage. So what does this mean operationally? Will it no longer be a crew base? Yeah, it is no longer a crew base, by the way. What do you speculate will happen to an airport of that size that loses a mainline carrier like this? Kind regards, and it's Andy. He put Alpha Hotel, and then with a little wink, like, yeah, he knows how we feel about phonetic identifications. So the URL that he gave us a link to, Airways Magazine, Delta zaps Cincinnati as focus city. Speaking at a Raymond James conference on Monday, Delta Airlines President Glenn Hounstein announced the airline will drop Cincinnati, Nashville, and San Jose as focus cities. Now, to be honest with you, I'm thinking, I'm not really sure what a focus city is. I think, well, Acme, in many, many ways is similar to Delta Airlines, and we do also have focus cities. And again, I didn't know what they were, but now I'm all focused on it. The news comes as Delta, along with most all other airlines, trim routes as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. The carrier will, however, maintain Austin and Raleigh-Durham as focus cities. Cincinnati used to be a full-fledged DL hub, but over the past dozen years or so, it has declined in importance. The CEO of the Cincinnati Airport, Candace McGraw, says that CVG remains a top 20 airport on the Delta network. However, Delta no longer operates a pilot base there and has only a satellite base for cabin crew. Delta has operated focus cities that are separate from its hub locations, according to FlightGlobal.com. Delta has 3 levels of classifications for the cities it serves. Again, this is kind of interesting to me, information I didn't really quite grasp. Atlanta, Detroit, Minneapolis, St. Paul, and Salt Lake City are its core hubs, where it focuses on driving connectivity, said Amy Martin, Managing Director of Domestic Network Planning at Delta. One rung lower are Boston, Los Angeles, New York John F. Kennedy and LaGuardia airports, and Seattle-Tacoma, which are called coastal hubs. These are 10 markets where the airline before the pandemic operated more than are the top 10 markets where the airline before the pandemic operated more than 150 peak day flights and offered some level of connectivity. And then the next rung down are the focus cities where the airline sees a lot of youthful presence, strong corporate standing, and above average growth for the industry. At these cities, Delta offered a certain number of point-to-point flights based on the needs of the business community. So what does it mean for CVG? At Cincinnati, dropping the focus city ranking means that instead of serving the top 25 markets from their airport, they'll serve the top 10 or top 15. It's going to be the destinations that are relevant. And this ultimately depends on the return of business traffic, according to Joe Esposito, Delta's Senior Vice President of Network Planning. Raleigh and Austin are both important to Delta because Raleigh is the, what do they call that? The Research Triangle?
Research Triangle. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and Austin because of their barbecue. Wait a minute. No, I'm sorry. That's the only thing I can think of when I think of Austin. Anyway, obviously these are fast-growing cities, centers, and especially Austin. I mean, that's becoming the new Silicon Valley, I think, slowly but surely. Anyway, there you go. All I know is that at Acme Airlines, I used to go to Austin quite often, but not anymore. They're putting bigger airplanes on those routes, so I'm missing my barbecue. Wah, wah, wah. Yeah. But so there you go, focus cities. I learned something new. Thank you, Andy, for sending in the article that got me up to speed on that. All right. You know, it just didn't make sense for that airline, especially after the merger with Northwest Airlines, that they had Cincinnati as a sort of a major hub and Detroit, and they're pretty close geographically. And there was a lot of I don't know,
overlap,
yeah.
perhaps.
Duplication.
Mm-hmm.
Duplication, yeah. So they decided we need to eliminate one or the other, and they chose Cincinnati.
And that's probably the type of thing that's being evaluated all the time anyway, because you want to have your business where it's going to be the strongest for you.
Mm-hmm. Good point.
But don't worry too much about old CVG. CVG will be fine. It's fast becoming a huge cargo hub. It's been a cargo hub for DHL for years, and now Amazon's going to base their operations center there. And at least on the cargo side of things, CVG is going to be just fine. So.
I was having this conversation with the FO on my last trip, and he said the very same thing. He said that he got into Cincinnati recently and said the place is kind of going like gangbusters, regardless of what's happening with the passenger carriers. Mm-hmm. So that's good. Yeah, the good folks of Cincinnati deserve that.
Absolutely.
And Northern Kentucky. Okay. We always had to make sure that we included Northern Kentucky when we told everybody we were flying to Cincinnati. We didn't want to hurt anybody.
They get confused when they get off the plane. It's like, welcome to Kentucky. And they go,
yeah.
Huh?
Yeah.
Cincinnati.
No, it's like when we first, when they first opened up DFW and everybody just said we were flying to Dallas. And then people would say, excuse me, it's a Dallas Fort Worth International Airport. Don't forget about Fort Worth. You even have memos that said,
well, it's like all those.
Make sure you say Fort Worth.
It's all those airports that are in London, right, Nick?
Yeah, we get a bit upset with you guys stealing our names.
What did we steal?
By the way,
what did we do?
No, I was just thinking of the places that are have London attached to the name of the airport, and it's not actually anywhere near London.
It's
what I was
flattering, right?
Yeah. Well, it is until you say London, England, and we go, yeah, there's only one London. All the others you can, qualify. You don't need to qualify London because there's only one of it.
Fair enough.
Okay. Wait a minute. In my ear, I'm hearing a protest from somebody that lives up in Canada. London, Ontario.
London, Ontario.
Yeah, London, England. London came first. So you can have a London, but you have to qualify. You don't qualify our London.
Okay. You know what? I really miss London.
So how do you really feel, Nick?
I'm sorry I opened that can of worms. We'll just move on.
It's like people who say the Royal
Not where
Army.
I anticipated that was going to go.
What'd you say, Nick?
It's like
The Royal
the Navy. There's only one Navy because we were the first. We had the first Navy in the world. You can call all your navies something else, but if you're just going to say the Navy, that's our Navy.
Yeah,
You can have
we'll
the
disagree
US
on that
Navy.
and circle back to that on the next
yeah,
podcast, all
exactly.
about the Navy.
Yeah, the
Captain
Navy,
Nick at airlinepilotguy.com.
or to be more precise, the Royal Navy.
John in the chat
Yeah,
room
well, we
understood where
don't-
I was going, so thank
We
you, John.
don't call ours the Royal Navy.
Yeah.
You could if you wanted, but then we'd have to come over there and sort you out.
Okay.
Oh, actually,
Keep that in
no.
mind.
We could just make you part of our Navy now. That'd be an even better idea.
You know what? I think this would be a good time for us to move on.
Yeah. That's,
I didn't start this. By the way, is Kentucky in Arkansas?
Yes, moving on.
Thought so. Yeah.
Kentucky, Arkansas. Okay. We got some feedback from Thomas. Save us, Thomas.
Excuse me.
He says, how long will it take for passenger airlines to recover? Well, that's essentially what he's writing or sending in audio about. He said, hi, Jeff, Liz, and crew. It's been ages since I submitted audio feedback. Here you go. Be well and take care. Thomas Witherspoon. So, without further ado, let's hear what Thomas has to say.
Hello, APG crew. This is Thomas Witherspoon in Asheville, North Carolina. I hope everyone's doing well and staying healthy out there. It's been ages since I sent in audio feedback, and I know that for a couple of reasons. Number one, I was going through my iPhone recently in the voice recordings, and I found 4 audio feedbacks I'd made for the APG show and never submitted them. And I think even partly in my head, I thought I had submitted some of them, but what happens is a lot of times I'll listen to the show when I'm hiking and I'm out and far away and not really near cell phone coverage. I'll make a recording and just forget to submit it later. And I probably never will submit these because, frankly, some of them, I bet you that they're 100 episodes old, some of them at this point. And then number 2, I was recently having a little exchange with our Captain Nick here on Facebook. And I was telling him a funny story that happened to me on Christmas Eve. So, like Nick, I'm a ham radio operator. I actually have a blog called the SW Welling Post, which is about ham radio and shortwave radio and that sort of thing. And one of my readers and good friends, Andy, lives in the same part of the UK where I used to live at one point. And he and I I was working on a project with him. He's helping me do some coding on a little board that he's made to fit on an HF transceiver. It's a really cool project that Andy's put together. And basically he's walking me through it, and we're working on the instructions for it and that sort of thing. And while we had the soldering iron out, we were just kind of chit-chatting, and he mentioned a ham radio podcast he really likes. And I said, yeah, I've heard of that podcast, and I've even listened to it a couple times, but frankly, I hardly have time to listen to podcasts during the week because I listen to the APG show. And I told him about the Airline Pilot Guy show, and I said, it's 3 hours long, which is usually about the maximum amount of podcast time I have during a week, but I love the long format. And I suggested it to Andy because he's an electronics engineer, and I know that he's worked with aviation electronics before. And anyway, we started talking about other things and working on the code a little bit. And then it hit me all of a sudden. I said, Andy, one of the hosts of the show lives in the same general area you do in the UK. And he said, are you talking about Nick Anderson? And I about fell out of my chair. Turns out he just lives a couple of streets over from Nick. They are neighbors. And it's just one of those beautiful small world moments where, our hobbies and interests and activities and everything kind of all come together. And nice we are the world moment. And turns out they know each other, and I think it's great. And Nick, as I told you on Facebook, Andy's an awesome guy. You're so lucky to have him as a neighbor. He's just such an interesting guy. And anyway, I just thought that was fun to pass along. So really, I've got a question. It was in one of my old audio feedbacks from last year. And I realize I don't think I've ever heard this discussed completely. But it deals with the pandemic, but kind of a different way. So I don't work in the aviation industry. I'm not a pilot or anything. But I do follow aviation news, of course. And I'm also into economics and business news and that sort of thing. And it seems like general sort of consensus is that it's going to take a while for the airline industry to recover from the pandemic. And in fact, you guys kind of confirmed it an episode or two ago when you were talking with someone who had audio feedback, and they were asking about if they should fast track their commercial pilot's license or take a little bit longer route. And you guys were kind of hinting that, hey, this is not a bad time to take a little longer so that the industry can recover and new pilots can be hired once again. And to me, sort of a layperson, it just seems to me like, once people start getting vaccinated and we beat down COVID-19 a bit, which looks like it's on a good trajectory right now, that there's all this pent-up travel energy. Almost all my friends that love traveling just can't wait for things to really start freeing up and countries opening up and they can go travel again safely. Just meaning, that there's no quarantine periods, there's nothing like that, once it's been beaten down. And I hope that that'll happen, this year. But obviously, it's going to take longer than that for the airline industry, at least the passenger airline industry, to recover. And I'm just curious, why is that exactly? I'm guessing it's some infrastructure things, like maybe just being able to pivot and go back to full capacity. But it seems to me like, there would be actually a massive surge, in people wanting to travel. So any insight you have would be much appreciated. As long as it's at least 50% accurate, I'll be good with it. And thank you guys so much for the awesome show. I've been listening now since Rick and Stephanie joined, so it's been a while, and I have to say the production value's always been great. But since Liz came on and started producing a show, man, it has really just gone up 7 levels, and it's so impressive. You guys do such an awesome job. It's just a pleasure to listen to it. And I like hearing Liz's commentary every once in a while, too. So thanks, you guys, for all the time and effort you put into this. It's just a wonderful show. I'm a very proud Patreon supporter. So thank you so much. Keep the blue skies above you, tailwinds and all those good things, and stay safe and healthy out there.
Don't encourage her, Thomas.
7 levels. That's oddly specific, but
Wow.
I like it.
I know. Yeah. Now, Liz,
Okay.
you have to shoot for that 8th level now. So
Let's
It's
all
just
hold
like
hands
a computer game.
and say,
We've
We
unlocked some
are
sort
the
of bonus,
Still. Andy is a lovely guy. And it was quite by coincidence that I met him, because I was chatting with that old spacecraft friend of mine I talked about on a VHF discrete frequency. And I don't know if Andy had a ladder incident. I don't know.
or a
That
stool.
was me.
Step stool.
did you get a gift from Andy lately?
I don't know. Did he ladder his stockings? I don't know. Anyway, I was chatting on this frequency, and up popped this other call sign. And you normally don't interrupt people who just picked a frequency and having a chat. But he said, I just got this amazingly strong signal from you, Nick. You must be very close to me. And, of course, it turned out he was literally 2 streets away. We met for a beer, and, we helped the local scouts out with one of their round-the-world communication days, and bumped into him just the other day, actually. He was heading up to a bit of high ground with some experimental masts, and we were chatting about a new project he's got of building his own keypad to go onto a new radio. He's a very clever chap. Interesting job, I think. He surveys places where you might want to put up a cell phone mast. Didn't know that was a job, but apparently it is. Anyway, he's a lovely guy, you're quite right. And great feedback, Thomas. No idea how to answer your question. I don't have a crystal ball, sadly.
Yeah, the speaking of production value and all that kind of stuff, every time we get in audio feedback from Thomas, it's always top quality. Great voice and very clear. You can tell he's a ham radio guy. He knows a little bit about audio, right?
Oh, he's probably got some good microphones. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was nice hearing
Definitely.
the ambiance and the birds in the background. So Nick
Yeah,
was on his.
yeah, absolutely like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Regarding his question, Steph, you have any ideas on that?
Yeah, I can kind of see both sides of the coin with how long will it take for passenger airlines to recover, and I think it's going to be very different in different parts of the world, depending on tolerances for risk and the like, without getting into too many specifics and/or politics. But I think we've kind of touched on this already a little bit with the stuff that's been going on in Hong Kong and how strict things are there. And I can't speak to what their numbers look like, but there's certainly a lot of countries around the world that are not taking chances with this virus, and they're not going to let things get back to pre-pandemic levels of business until things are very clearly under control. And then there's a lot of other places in the world that say, well, we need these industries to keep going for the economy and the like, and we're going to take more risks with it, perhaps. And I think there's going to be, probably in the U.S. more than in other places, this pent-up demand for travel. So I think you'll start to see it opening up sooner in some places than most people might think otherwise.
Yeah, here in the just anecdotal experience from me in the last few weeks, especially the last couple of trips, every single flight, no matter where we're going, what market it is, we're filling up that airplane to the max. That based upon the having the center seat on one side, because we have the 2 and 3 arrangement. By the way, the 3 is on the first officer side and the 2 is on the captain's side.
Glad you finally checked that out.
I paid closer attention to it when I was saying goodbye to the passengers. I go, oh, okay.
It's the opposite of the Mad Dog, right?
Yeah, well, the Mad Dog, was the opposite way, and the 90
Mm-hmm.
was just like the
that's
717,
right. Okay.
the 2 and 3. But anyway, that center seat, with exception, is pretty much staying open unless there's like a family or a couple or whatever with each other.
Now, I've flown on other airlines, not Acme,
Yeah.
in the recent past, and several of those airlines are not blocking any seats anymore, and they are full also.
Jams
Oh, yeah.
Full.
Absolutely.
So
I fly
I
every
hear
other
it-
week, and it's just packed.
Yeah, it's the U.S. It's I think it's going to happen a lot faster than anybody thought it would. I think the summer is just we're going to kick this summer. In fact, I think a lot of airlines probably have underestimated the crewing requirements and the airplane requirements out of storage and everything else to kind of cover what is probably going to be just an amazing summer here domestically.
Mm-hmm. And I also think, and I think this is U.S. specific as well, but in terms of pilot shortage, I think we're going to see that come back into play very quickly, more so than people think, just because that demand's going to go up. You've had all of these pilots who are closer to retirement age taking early retirements with the pandemic. You've had people not, going through training as quickly, and I think there's going to be more of a shortage than is anticipated. It's going to come back into play real quick.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a lot of airlines, and this is from talking to people, obviously in the business, have recalled a lot of their pilots, or if not all of their pilots, back up to flight status because of what Steffi just mentioned here. And so I do think that, at least on the passenger side, here in the States, things are looking up, way up. So that's certainly good news.
Yep.
Yeah, you guys are coming out of this a lot quicker than we are in Europe. We have bigger problems in that Europe, it's not really a bunch of states, it's a bunch of countries, and everybody, even in the EU, everyone wants to have their own say as to how their country allows people in and out, which makes it incredibly complicated. And with mainland Europe now into their third wave, in the UK we've had our third wave, we're coming down. Even though we would love in the UK to open up transport, it's likely that we're going to close our border to a lot of European countries because we don't want to bring their third wave and give us a fourth wave. It's until everyone is inoculated and everything has settled down, it's still going to be a major problem. So I say we're lagging behind you by at least 6 months, if not longer. And just listening to Nige and his predictions of what's happening out in the Far East, it might even be worse out there. So I think you individually your aviation industry is going to do a lot better than it is in the rest of the world, which is, you guys can have a great domestic market. You may not have a recovery international market for a while.
Correct.
Yet.
I've got an idea, Nick. We should just open things up freely between the UK and America at this point, and
I think just between London and Charlotte.
I
That'll
think
be
so.
fine.
Yes, that would be fine.
Is that London, England?
Well, can we make an exception for London, Ontario?
Yeah, you just got to make sure you lay over. Make sure you lay over in Anchorage. You'll be fine.
Yeah, exactly. I felt like a lazy old fish there, watching a hook with a worm on it just float by. But it moved before I could snap at it.
Oh, good for you. All right. Well, it is a small world, isn't it, regarding people that we know, and not necessarily even in aviation, but all kinds of different
aren't we all supposed to have only 6 levels of
6
separation?
degrees of Kevin Bacon. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
like
between between us and anybody. So
bacon.
yeah,
That sounds good. Okay, let's continue with this next one here from Ben. He sent this to us on Facebook. We're on Facebook, by the way. Some of us, mostly Liz and Nick. I don't really get there very often, but if they tell me there's something going on over there that needs my attention, they'll bring it to my attention. But here's a great example of it. Ben put this on Facebook, and now it's here in our feedback. He says, Airline Pilot Guy, the biggest thing I've found with communicating to pilots in my 12 years in air traffic control is know your audience. A good controller should alter their delivery to suit the pilot, especially when you know you may have difficulties. As an example, I can speak to, say, a regional pilot or Qantas quite normally, rather brisk, and if I use plain English, say to explain how I'm going to vector them to make the sequence work so they have a good expectation of the plan, they don't get confused. International carriers, especially those from non-English speaking backgrounds, you tend to speak a bit slower, over-enunciate a little, and talk really, really loudly, almost yelling. And no, I'm sorry, he didn't say that. I added that. Over-enunciate a little and stick to standard phraseology as much as humanly possible. Yes. Just like the controllers at John F. Kennedy International Airport in New York. Student pilots, you tend to just need to slow down the rate a little and ensure you're enunciating well. Like proceed with a...
Proceed left-bound. That's
left-bound.
Yeah.
Foreign students may struggle a little and need to stick to mostly standard, but this improves with experience and they have an instructor with them most of the time. Most importantly, as I was taught early on, slow down to speed up. You naturally want to talk faster and faster and faster when you get busy, but it's of no use if you have to explain yourself twice or more to get the result.
Mm-hmm.
Good.
Slow
good.
is fast.
Yeah,
yeah.
that's right.
Usually, you include a telling off of the pilot who didn't quite catch it, explaining how busy you are, and then you have to say it again. So, New York. Oh, did I say that?
It's not
Something
that
about
bad. Come
working
on.
multiple frequencies and everyone just don't say anything until I talk to you, type of a thing.
Yeah, yeah. Won't
You
let
always
go
hear
there.
you always hear the story of the southern, good old boy southern pilot heading up to New York, and he goes, you can either talk to me the speed at which I'm talking to you and just communicate what you need to communicate once, or you can talk super fast and take, whatever the saying is, it's just take forever. I'm not good at
Masterfully
that.
said. I'm sure there's a saying in there somewhere.
I like
There's
it.
a really good thing.
I've had
It's a
people
good
tell me
thing.
that they don't listen as fast as I speak, so
Yeah.
that happens to me frequently. But
It's natural, though, when you go into a place like, say, New York or somewhere up in New England where the rate of their speaking is much faster. And you can always tell when they're really busy because they're making it really fast, and you all of a sudden start talking like that too. I think because you just kind of get caught up in it, and also you're thinking, I'm going to try to take as little airtime as I can just to acknowledge whatever it was they told me to do. But that can be a
Counterproductive.
Yeah, counterproductive.
so if you're on
or a
the
spiraling
pilot side
circle,
of this, perhaps think about what you're going to say first too before you key that
Yeah.
mic, so that
A vicious
you don't
circle,
have
yes.
like a word
Hang on a
salad
minute.
just all
That
of a
assumes they
sudden.
give you a moment to think.
You can still take a moment.
Well,
Slow is fast.
unless you're at Chicago O'Hare, where they give a stream of instructions and they don't even they don't even give you an opportunity to read them
Yep.
back. No. It's just a long string of instructions for several different airplanes.
Just acknowledge with an ident.
I mean, you just like, okay, I guess they're assuming that I understood what they just said, and I'm going to do what I need to do, and they're going to yell
If
at
they
me
see
when I'm not
you,
doing
if
it.
they see you not
Yeah.
doing it, they'll tell you again probably.
Oh yeah, they will.
Mhm.
They will certainly do that.
And then give you a number.
Where are you going?
Good,
We're in the turn.
Okay. I'm speaking mostly on the ground. It's just like, you just kind of go, okay, I know the general flow of traffic here, and if I do something that I wasn't supposed to do, then they're going to point that out to one of the other airplanes, and they'll
You
sort
see,
it
all
out
these
for you.
problems go away if you find the middle of the night. That's
Yeah,
fantastic.
that's probably true.
So.
Of course, you can't see anything, but you don't need
Well,
to.
it's really funny. I remember one time we were taking off from, may have been Chicago or JFK, one of the two. It was a really busy airport, and I had the clearance controller was also the ground controller, who was the tower controller, all in one. So it was it was great. It felt like a little airport.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, you know what time it is. It's that time of the show where we get to hear from the old pilot and his plain tales. And this week's episode is entitled Terminal Velocity. So take it away, old pilot.
The old pilot's plain tales. Terminal velocity. It takes about 12 seconds for the human body to reach terminal velocity. In that time, it will have travelled around 1,500 feet and be doing some 120 miles an hour. That's nearly 200 kilometers per hour. At that speed, a person will see the Earth's surface approach them at 177 feet, or 54 meters every second. In pilot speak, that's over 10,600 feet per minute. So in the short time that I've been speaking, they will have plummeted over 5,000 feet. Of course, the human body isn't a rigid object that will fall at a constant speed. If someone streamlines their falling posture, it's possible to exceed terminal velocity. Speed skydivers have reached upwards of 330 miles per hour, 530 kilometers per hour, considerably faster than the fastest bird of prey, the peregrine falcon, which can only reach 200 miles per hour. If you're not too worried about reaching the full value of terminal velocity, since your acceleration isn't a constant but follows an asymptotic curve, in a mere 3 seconds you can cover 150 feet, which will put you at 50% of your final speed. Even during a small fall, you will accelerate very quickly and be travelling at quite a rate of knots when you reach terra firma. Falling is the second leading cause of accidental death worldwide, and merely falling off your feet to the ground can be fatal. However, on average, 50% of people die if they fall from 48 feet, about 14.6 meters. Falls from more than 60 feet, 18.3 meters, are almost uniformly lethal. But don't worry too much. There are plenty of other ways to die before you get to falling, as it only accounts for 1.25% of all causes of death. Your chances of dying by falling depends a lot on variables such as how you land. Head first is not recommended, and up to a point, what you land on. Surfaces that will deform and absorb the energy of your fall are good, but some, like water, can only do so much, and if you're travelling at great speed, it literally can't get out of the way quickly enough. If you've died falling, it's most likely to have been from a... And if that doesn't get you, then you'll probably go from internal bleeding from organ damage or broken bones, particularly the pelvis. If you've survived the impact, it's important to get to hospital quickly before your injuries prove to be, if you'll excuse the pun, your downfall. If you've fallen from above 1,500 feet, it doesn't really matter whether you started at 1,500 or 15,000 feet. You're going to hit the ground at more or less the same speed. However, there is a certain cachet in being the person who fell the furthest and survived. Before we get on to the current Guinness World Record holder, who was presented her certificate by none other than Paul McCartney, Beatles, I note, can live through a fall from almost any height, let's take a look at others who have taken notable falls and lived to tell the tale. I've already talked about one remarkable young lady, Julianne Kupka, in my tale The Christmas Angels. Surviving a fall of around 10,000 feet following the disintegration of the Lockheed Electra she was flying in was only part of her story. Badly injured, it took 10 days for her to escape the dangers of the Amazon rainforest and reach help, all achieved at the age of only 17. Living through the initial fall was probably due to her being thrown from the aircraft, still secured to a row of 3 seats, which may have slowed her descent and given an element of cushioning and protection when she crashed through the canopy of trees. The thick foliage at her landing spot would also have helped to lessen the impact. Regardless, it's an incredible story of luck and tenacity from an amazing teenager. March 1944 saw 21-year-old Royal Air Force gunner Sergeant Nicholas Stephen Alkermaid aboard an Avro Lancaster Mark II of number 115 Squadron. Nicholas was the tail gunner of DS-664, which bore the markings Alpha 4 Kilo, part of an 811 aircraft bomber raid on Berlin. It was to be the last major RAF attack on the city during the war. The formation was made up from 577 Lancasters, 216 Halifax and 18 Mosquitoes. The night would be remembered by many because of a powerful and unforecast wind that blew in from the north, which caused many problems for the crews. The bomber stream became badly scattered, and the Pathfinder force of Mosquitoes, whose job it was to mark the targets, found their indicators were being carried well beyond the intended position to the southwest, and in some cases right out of the city. For Nicholas, the night would be memorable for another very personal reason. Their attack run at around 20,000 feet had gone well, with sky markers plus red and green ground markers in good positions to the east of the city. During the return flight, the wind was affecting navigation even more than before, and many aircraft strayed over flak batteries they'd normally have avoided, some even overflying the Ruhr defences. 50 of the 72 aircraft lost that night would be destroyed by flak. The remaining 22, including DS-664, fell victim to night fighters. As they headed homeward through the night, they drifted well south of their intended track. They were approaching the small town of Oberkirchen, but a great peril lay ahead, as they would soon find themselves in the heavily defended areas of Dortmund, Essen, Düsseldorf, and Cologne, but a more immediate threat loomed. A Junkers Ju-88 night fighter had found them. The front of the twin-engined fighter bristled with the mattress aerials of the Liechtenstein radar, but despite the extra drag, they closed on their target until the dark outline of the Lancaster appeared above. When the massive bomber grew large enough, they opened fire with 20mm cannons that ripped open the wings of the target, and fire blossomed out of the crippled bomber. The Lancaster was soon completely ablaze, and as they began to go down, the pilot, Flight Sergeant Arthur Newman, called them on the intercom, "Jump!" There was no room in the small tail gunner's position for a parachute, so Nicholas crawled out to grab his from the stowage, only to find that it had already been destroyed by the fire. He crouched in the narrow fuselage with flames licking around his flying clothes as the Lancaster spiraled down, and he wondered what to do. "I had no doubts at all that this was the end of the line," he said years later. "The question was whether to stay in the plane and fry or jump to my death." It only took him a moment to make up his mind. "I decided to jump and make a quick, clean end of things. I backed out of the turret and somersaulted away." Sergeant Alchemade had jumped out at an estimated height of 18,000 feet, but mercifully he recalls little of his terrifying fall as he blacked out. When he came round, he was lying in a snowdrift under a big fir tree, which had mercifully cushioned his impact. He gingerly tested his arms and legs, and to his amazement he could move. The only injury he suffered was a sprained ankle. German troops were searching for survivors from the crashed aircraft, and Nicholas was soon captured and interrogated by the Gestapo, who were, perhaps understandably, suspicious of his claim to have survived the fall until the wreckage was examined. Along with the bodies of the 3 crew members who failed to escape the doomed aircraft, they found the charred remains of the tail gunner's parachute just where Nicholas said it would be, and they even gave him a letter testifying to the fact. Nicholas soon found himself in Stalag Luft 3, a camp famous for its many ingenious escape attempts, 2 of which were immortalized in films, The Wooden Horse and The Great Escape. His miraculous survival made him something of a celebrity, but he never escaped himself. After the war, he was repatriated to Britain to rejoin Pearl, his sweetheart. Lieutenant Colonel Ivan Chizov was another who survived a remarkable fall, but he was serving a different Air Force, the Soviet Air Force. He was a navigator in an Aleutian IL-4, tasked to bomb the German forces in 1942. Luftwaffe fighters attacked the formation of bombers, crippling Chizov's aircraft, and he was forced to bail out from a height of around 23,000 feet, as observed by a fellow crewman, Nikolai Zugin, who abandoned the aircraft a little later. Ivan was concerned that, should he open his parachute too early, he would be a sitting duck for the German fighter pilots as he dangled under the canopy, so he planned to wait until he had dropped below the level of the fierce air battle that was going on around him. His plan, however, didn't quite go as he hoped when he lost consciousness during his long fall towards the earth. With his parachute unopened, he landed on the edge of a snowy ravine and then slid, rolled, and ploughed his way to the bottom. Watching the air battle overhead was the cavalry commander, General Pavel Alexeyevich Belov, who saw Ivan's body fall into the ravine, and he promptly dispatched some cavalrymen to recover this brave dead aviator. However, when they reached the spot and dug Chizov out of the snow, they found him badly injured but alive and still wearing his unopened parachute. He had suffered spinal injuries and a broken pelvis, but was operated on, and for a month his condition was considered critical. Despite this, Ivan made a full recovery, which he proved by taking to the air again only 3 months later. He wanted to continue flying combat missions, but was instead sent to become a navigator instructor. After the war, he graduated from the Military Political Academy, and on his departure from the reserve, he became a propagandist for the Central House of the Soviet Army. Snap, Crackle, Pop was a B-17 Flying Fortress of the 360th Bomb Squadron, which flew from RAF Molesworth in England during the Second World War. On board was one Alan McGee of Plainfield, New Jersey, whose job it was to man the ball turret mounted on the belly of the bomber. He was picked for this task because of his stature. He stood only 5 foot 6 inches in his socks. The 360th had been tasked, along with 84 other bombers and including the Memphis Belle, to attack the U-boat submarine base at Saint-Nazaire. Over their target, the formation encountered heavy flak, and at least 2 squadrons of Luftwaffe fighters, and a fierce air battle ensued.
We were hit by anti-aircraft guns, but what really knocked us out of the sky was a Focke-Wulf FW-190 shooting our wing off,
McGee said.
The last thing I remember was that I was at 20-some thousand feet trying to get out of a burning plane.
McGee had already been wounded when a shell hit his turret, which destroyed the turning mechanism, so he had climbed out, only to discover that his parachute had also been struck and now sported a large hole. As he made his way forward, the B-17 was struck again, with part of the right wing coming away and sending the big aircraft into a spin. He tried to get to the radio man station so that they could bail out together, but without his oxygen supply, he fell unconscious before he could reach him. Tumbling down from over 22,000 feet, McGee was miraculously thrown free from the aircraft as it came apart, and he began a 4-mile journey towards the ground. He remembered the sensation of falling, and he thought to himself,
I don't wish to die because I know nothing of life.
When he came to, he was still alive, but caught up in the steel girders of the Saint-Nazaire railway station roof, whereupon he said,
I don't know how I got here, but here I am, and thanks to God.
His fall had been broken by the glass roof of the station, which shattered under his impact, but he had not escaped without injury. He'd been hit twice before being thrown out of the B-17, but now had 28 shrapnel wounds, a punctured lung and kidney. His nose and one eye had been ripped open. His right arm was nearly severed from his body. He had a broken right leg and ankle and several damaged teeth. He was treated by a very capable doctor at the Hermitage Hotel in the town, who did a marvellous job of taking care of his many injuries, and he spent the rest of the war in a prisoner-of-war camp. The people of Saint-Nazaire didn't forget him, though, and 50 years later they erected a 6-foot memorial to McGee and the crew of his bomber, a little taller than the man himself. The Guinness World Record for living through a fall without a parachute lies with a Serbian flight attendant, Vesna Polovic, although her remarkable feat of high-altitude survival has been called into question by conspiracy theorists. Some believe that the aircraft she was flying in was shot down at low altitude by a MiG of the Czechoslovak Air Force. However, both Guinness and I am going with the original story, which has Vesna in a DC-9 of JAT, Yugoslav Airlines, at 33,000 feet. After a layover in Stockholm, the flight was staging its way back to Belgrade when a bomb planted in the baggage compartment tore through the aircraft, causing the airliner to break up over Czechoslovakia, now the Czech Republic, on the 26th of January 1972. Vesna remembers nothing of the accident, but it's likely that she remained trapped in part of the fuselage, which impacted a heavily wooded, snow-covered mountain, which saved her from a violent deceleration. The attack on the flight was believed to have been carried out by Croatian nationalists, but no arrests were ever made. Vesna was amazingly lucky to live through the fall and her subsequent injuries. Indeed, she was the only one from the 28 crew and passengers who survived the ordeal. She was discovered by a villager who'd heard her screaming amid the wreckage. Her turquoise uniform was covered in blood and her long stiletto heels had been torn off by the force of the impact. Her rescuer had been a medic during World War II, and he managed to keep Vesna alive until help arrived. She remained in a coma for 27 days and in hospital for 16 months. She was temporarily paralyzed from the waist down, but recovered despite suffering a skull fracture and hemorrhage, 2 broken legs, 3 broken vertebrae, one of which was crushed, a fractured pelvis and several broken ribs. Afterwards, she continued to work for the airline, but this time she stayed safely on the ground behind a desk.
Wow. Tough woman. That last one.
And
Hello.
lucky.
Very lucky.
You're muted.
Yeah.
You're muted.
I'm always muted.
There we go.
Damn.
Well, not
sorry.
always. I've been around you and you're not very muted at all.
Now that
Fair
I remember,
enough.
me too.
Yeah. But you're quite right, Jeff. A very tough lady. She still walks with a bad limp, or walked with a bad limp. But, hell, spells. 33,000 feet. That's quite a survival story.
That just shows you how tough that DC-9 is. Wait a minute. It has nothing to do with the airplane, does it?
Maybe a little bit if she was still in the fuselage. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's true.
They could only piece that together. Yeah. And quite honestly, when you look at the accident report, it's all pretty,
uncertain.
There's not a lot of detail there.
Yeah.
But they think that she got her feet caught into a galley cart and rode the airplane down. But regardless, incredible.
I must.
But sorry, yeah.
I was going to say, I must say that I agree with Lane and our live audience that you are really, really getting very good with those authentic sounding accents.
Oh no!
Oh yeah, well that New Jersey one took me a while actually to get.
You did a lot of practice.
Yeah, exactly right.
You had to research the character. Just go down there. Go down to Coney Island, it's good stuff.
Well, I've been around that way a few times, but no, seriously, I've got to thank Ivan, the wonderful bloke who helped out. Now, Hillel recruited him and asked him if he would give us a little reading to cover those few lines, because his accent is brilliant. It sounded so good. So thank you both. And, of course, thanks to Tim Quills, who we got his feedback on the last show, and that was his idea to cover Nicholas Alcady. And, of course, sadly, that story wasn't big enough on its own to fill a whole plane tale. So I could have done a 4-minute one, or I could have added a few more, added a few more.
Well, I would have really appreciated just a 4-minute one. No,
yeah, I thought you might have done.
Well,
I can't empty my bladder quickly enough nowadays.
You seem to be longer than that. Seem to do that just fine when I'm doing the coffee fund. I'm just saying. Yeah.
Well, you think I'm going for a beer? I'm just grabbing a beer.
Okay. No, we look forward not only to the break that we get, but you know what? If I haven't listened to the Plain Tale before the show, I try to do that so that I don't feel like I'm missing anything. But if I have to get up, as I did for a physiological break, I'm always thinking, darn it, I'm missing some of the tale. But because I have to do all the post-editing, I usually end up listening to it at least once or twice through. So.
Wow, that's great. I really appreciate it. Thanks.
Yeah, I mean, you did such a great job with those things. Just
absolutely.
And thank you, Tim Qualls, for the great suggestion and got the whole ball rolling on this one.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Liz tells us we have about 40 minutes left, so we better get on with it so we can get as much of this feedback accomplished as possible. And let's start where we left off on 8. Christian, he says, "Hi, APG team. I've been quiet of late as I've fallen behind in listening to episodes since I've been working from home and not commuting every day. I'm still listening to episode 443, released on September 19th, and it's March 1st today, so I'm almost 6 months behind. However, I came across this story, and given Nick's sadness at the shuttering of Flybe last year, I thought the community might be interested in the fate of 11 of their 79 Q400s. They're going to be converted to Q400AT air tankers for Conair aerial firefighting back in their homeland of Canada. Here's an article from Flight Global about that transaction." And then he gives us a link to that. And of course, he probably hasn't heard yet the episode where we did actually talk about this. So thank you, Christian, for sending us the article. And let's see, he continues, "Hope you're all well. I wouldn't know thanks to my space-time aberration, except for the recent Facebook posts advising of the postponement of recording of episode 462, which now appears to have taken place. Sigh. Another episode to add to my backlog. Nevertheless, I'm glad Jeff is back on his feet, or arse in this case, and not on his back. Q, that's what she said." Oh, okay. I didn't. Q, that's what she said. I'm not doing very well with the Qs here on the show. See if I can find it.
That is what she said.
That's what she said.
That's what you don't want to hear her say, Rick.
A producer can only do so much, you know.
I know. I should probably give Liz the soundboard duties.
Yeah, I think that would be a
No,
good
that
idea.
would be a bad idea. Never mind.
There would be a lot of sound clips being played.
That would not be
Oh,
good.
yeah.
I like the idea of that.
Definitely will not give that ability to Nick. I know that. would be a
No,
huge
don't do
mistake.
that.
I know. Okay. He continues, "This too will be dated, but I loved hearing Liz's voice and commentary in the episodes. However, in the recent ones I've listened to, that seems to have stopped. I can only hope the sarcastic comments will be coming back. The world needs more Canada. Be well, all. Christian Base in Richmond Hill, Ontario. Liz can help with that." So, Christian, a lot of people agree with you. They like hearing Liz's commentary and everything else, but it's kind of gone to her head, honestly. And she's gotten to the point where it's just like non-stop commentary. And if I included her commentary in every show, I mean, that's all you'd hear, basically, is her. And for hours. And she tends to have let her, the self-censoring mechanism has failed her. And it's kind of a mess, actually. So sadly, we can't really help. No, I'm trying to kind of find the right balance of Liz's commentary in the background and such. So I think that you're with most people who have given us feedback on that they definitely want to hear more Liz.
It seems like people fall into two camps. More Liz, or they think you've just made a mistake and forgotten to take Liz out the whole time.
Honestly, that's kind of the decision-making process for me, is like I get so tired of explaining why. Yes, I know that you hear Liz, but the other host can't. And I finally got to the point where, screw it. I'm just not gonna put it in there anymore. But anyway, so it's an ongoing, it's an evolving, it's an organic evolution, as they say. So we'll see what happens. But Liz is not going anywhere for sure. She says, yes, it's a dynamic environment. She said, I'm not going anywhere. She's taken over. Oh, Liz, I can't say that. No. Mm-mm. I'm just kidding. She didn't say anything. Moving on. She did say that. Moving on to 9. This is feedback from Greg, our big-ass fan. By the way, Greg, I don't know if you saw that I was drinking from this very nice pint glass, which is now empty. I need to put more beer in it. A nice big-ass fan.
Right, you suggesting he comes down and fills it up for you?
I am suggesting that. Anyway, hope everyone is doing well. Just finished listening to episode 462 and had a little feedback to go with Captain Nick's Plain Tale for this week. In 2012, Big Ass Fans, the company for which he works, introduced a new option on one of our commercial fans, wood grain airfoils. The airfoils were wrapped in very thin pieces of real wood. This was very costly and labor intensive to produce. We found a less costly and much less labor-intensive process that produced a wood grain look that was very realistic. In February of 2013, I visited the supplier that would be producing these airfoils for us. The guy who owned the company had a very extensive car, truck, and antique tractor collection and gave us a tour while we were visiting. One of the cars in his collection was an original Rickenbacker. I can't for the life of me remember the model or the year, but he told us that it was the only one of its kind and was worth about $1 million. I have not been able to confirm that, and I can't find any references to it on the interwebs. I do remember that the guy who owned it didn't really share much about it because of its apparent uniqueness and value. I was going to reach out to him and ask him to refresh my failing memory, but the company has gone out of business, and I fear the owner might have passed away. He was pretty advanced in years and in somewhat poor health back in 2013. I've included a picture of the car. I thought I'd taken more, but I can't seem to find them now. I see that Liz has put that on the overlay there. Thank you, Liz. If any of your intrepid listeners might be able to help clarify the exact identity of this car. So I'll put this in the show notes as well if you're not watching the video. Okay. Blue skies, favorable winds. G'day. Your big ass fan, Greg Peterson.
It's a beautiful
It's a good-looking car.
Don't know anything about it, but it's gorgeous.
Well, I seem to recall from my research that the company didn't stay alive for that long. It was only a few years. So they wouldn't have produced that many models. They aimed at the middle of the market, so they were sort of average price, but they did produce some luxury models, and that definitely looks like one of their luxury models. But exactly which one, I wouldn't have a clue, sorry.
I don't know, but it looks like $1 million to me.
Oh, yeah,
look
absolutely.
Look at those wheels.
Looks sweet.
All those little spokes in the wheels. That's just so nice.
I'm trying to look at the lights. It looks like they're sort of encased, the lamps at the front.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what that is. If it, do they tilt? 90 degrees, and then you
I think they might be clamshells and open up or something.
I don't. It almost just looks like the light is below or in the lower part of the front.
I think you're right. Yeah,
and it just kind of focuses it.
There's glass in the front bottom 2/3.
Yeah.
So the rest of it would be, I don't know what they were using in those days. Probably electric light bulbs, I'd have thought.
Sure.
Very Art Deco-y. I like it.
Yeah. Boy, it'd be nice to have a car like that, wouldn't it? Very nice. Thanks, Greg. We do appreciate that.
Well, it'd be nice to have $1 million, but I'm not going to have either.
Whatever. It's just money. All right. Moving on with Matt. He says, hello, ABG crew. I'm a new listener to the podcast, and this is my first time giving feedback. Sorry in advance for any grammar mistakes. I'm a former helicopter instructor pilot. Oh, there you go. Probably going to be a lot of mistakes in this. Yeah. But was in a pretty serious accident a few years ago in which I lost my medical and have been working to get back into the air someday. The show has been very helpful with keeping my passion for flying going and working hard through the complex medical process I've been going through. It was cool finding out that Rick was flying Prime Air jets on one of the episodes because while I was instructing at Allentown, Alpha Bravo Echo, I had a side job for bad weather and maintenance days working on the line, which was in charge of fueling the Prime Air 767-200 and 300s. My coworkers were definitely not fans of the 200s because some made you hold a button down. I think they called it a reset button on the fuel panel the whole time you were fueling. I was wondering if Rick might know what that button was and what caused that.
No, I have no idea. I'm not familiar with the Dash 200.
It was just those horrible bloody Boeing pilots, Boeing captains, making you do something completely unnecessary.
You gotta hold that
for a joke. Yeah.
I wonder if it was a because I know if I've never fueled jetliners before, but I wonder if it's some kind of Detman switch that shuts off the fuel if you let go of it for safety reasons. But I mean,
that is usually like on a. I used to fuel
there you
jet airliners, 727s and DC-9s, and usually had like a handle that you'd hold, like a spring. It was like you worked against a spring and you held it in the hand. It was the dead man switch or whatever.
Then I have no idea.
But I've never had to hold a button on the actual airplane itself. Probably. Did you look around and did you see like the pilots kind of like hiding behind the landing gear and like with cameras?
Sniggering.
He's actually pushing the button. He's holding it.
Joe, come over here. Look at this.
Come on, check this out.
He fell for
Get
it.
the camera. Get the camera.
Anyway, he continues. Another thing I found interesting while I worked there was that of the 4 morning flights, the fuel the flights requested seemed backwards. The flight going to Dayton, Ohio would always request more fuel, a top-off of both wings, if I am remembering correctly, than the flight going to L.A., and I was always curious why that was. My best guess was that they didn't want to get fuel in Dayton because it was more expensive or something like that. I was unsure if airlines or cargo carriers plan for flights to not get refueled at some stops due to fuel prices or other possible issues, and wanted to see if you guys could help me figure out why these flights required such odd fuel numbers or fuel loads. Love the show. Hope you guys stay safe out there. And he also says, if you guys ever get any helicopter-related feedback and are unsure of how to answer it, I'd be happy to help. Well, Matt, what we normally do whenever we get feedback about helicopter-related stuff, we usually just throw it away. No, I'm just kidding. We don't do that.
It's the only sensible thing, really.
The only sensible thing. But regarding that last thing about the different fuel weights and stuff, Rick, can you enlighten us on that?
Yeah, I was going to mention that. So this is oftentimes you'll take more fuel than you need for a specific leg or sector, and then you keep in mind obviously your max landing weight at your destination, your traffic load or the amount of cargo or passengers that you're going to be carrying with you and all that. And the reason why we'll do that sometimes is because the cost of the fuel at your intermediate stop might be higher, maybe more expensive than it is where you're taking off from, and so that's called tankering. So you'll buy the fuel, or you'll tanker the fuel required to get you to your final destination instead of having to refuel somewhere else. And that might be because of cost. It also might be because of fuel availability. It might be because of short turnaround time. So there's many factors, but that's oftentimes why we do that.
Makes sense. Yeah. Probably has a lot to do with fuel cost, I would imagine.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. There we go. Well, always great to have a new member of our APG community, Matt. And we're happy you're here. And if you have any helicopter-related stuff that you want us to talk about, then just shoot it our way. Feedback at airlinepilotguy.com. And you're not the only one out there, by the way. Over the years, we've had several people that kind of complain that we don't talk about helicopters enough. But we just don't know anything about them, really. We just try to stay away from them if we can.
Not our area of expertise.
No. But,
someone needs to start a helicopter-specific podcast.
Nick is really a big fan of helicopters, though. I have to tell you that. You're still. It's probably a good thing that we were muted because he's going to probably say something very offensive.
Yeah, I know. I was just saying how much I love the idea of flying helicopters.
You sound like was it Audrey Hepburn in on Golden Pond?
That's what helicopter pilots sound like.
Katharine Hepburn. I'm sorry.
They all sound like women.
but you don't. Yeah. We got a report of the 405.
I don't know how they keep that silly accent up for so long, that silly wobbling.
I don't know. They probably have some kind of an electronic box that they talk into and it just automatically makes it sound like
Yeah, I would if I was a helicopter pilot, that's for sure.
They're sitting on the ground somewhere in a lazy boy.
Yeah. Work smart, not hard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right. Okay. Brad writes in, wanted to give some feedback to the 17-year-old, I think his name was AJ, in episode 463, that was asking for advice regarding finishing out his electrical trade school first, then going on to pilot training. Something that he could look at when the time comes to pursue flight training, and then the airline jobs would be to research regional airlines that have an active flow-through program with the majors. I have a former coworker that was hired by PSA Airlines as a first officer straight out of training once he reached 1,500 hours and stayed with them all the way through his captain's upgrade. Once he had enough flying time under his belt as a captain, he became a check airman for the company. After 7 years of being employed with PSA from start to finish, he was able to flow through to American mainline and now operates as a first officer on the 737. Long story short, he did all this with no college degree. The 7-year timeline for his employment was just his own timeline that he chose to stay with PSA, as he enjoyed his job there and really wasn't in a huge hurry to leave. I do know of others who have flowed through to mainline a little quicker. Please keep in mind these programs were in place pre-COVID, so I'm not sure if they've temporarily suspended this or not. It's definitely a great option if you simply want to be laser focused on just flying, but also have a great career. Quick side note, this same individual mentioned above is now working on his degree via online schooling while he's working. He achieved his goal of becoming a mainline pilot and now has the time to complete that as well. I hope this small bit of info is helpful to this young man and offers him an additional option. Thank you all and take care, Brad. What do you think?
There you
Steph?
go. Good
advice?
information. Yeah, because none of us have done that specifically, so it's hard for us to, unless we could think of someone personally that we knew who had that experience, which I don't think any of us did. So it's nice to know that that does happen.
Yeah.
An answer to the question about needing a 4-year degree or not, and it sounds like he's moving forward with it anyway at this point. So good.
Yeah, good on you, man. Good deal.
I think there were some programs like that with Acme. I think that I don't know if they're going
Endeavor,
on anymore.
I don't know.
Yeah, Endeavor and Compass and some others. And
yeah, back in the day, it was wasn't it Comair? Wasn't that the,
Comair, Pinnacle,
Yeah.
Compass, Endeavor?
I'm talking early
They're all
2000s.
a little bit different programs and requirements, and some guaranteed you an interview, and some gave you the opportunity for an. Some of them were more sure thing than others, but I would imagine the ones that were really super sure thing, maybe they didn't require the college degree. I'm not sure because I never. I've flown with some of these people.
I don't know what if it's a qualified thing, like it's guaranteed
Yeah.
flow through, but you must have your 4-year degree. If you don't, then
Right.
I don't know, but I know, so they were talking specifically about, the American Airlines one. So that's the wholly owned subsidiaries have that flow through. So PSA, Envoy, and
Republic?
Nope. Piedmont. Sorry.
Oh, Piedmont. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. Have that flow through agreement.
I would imagine if it's like one of those solid flow throughs that maybe the college degree is just not a.
It may not be a requirement because you're a known commodity at that point. You've had, several years under your belt flying for the regional, and they need you as a pilot.
And from here on, when things start recovering again, I'm not sure, what these things will look like. But that's some good advice and good anecdotal experience / evidence. Brad, thank you. Do appreciate that. Henry wrote in, and he said, "Hello, Captain Jeff and team. I saw this one tonight, and it looks like a resolution advisory. I imagine that's one of those computer avoidance notifications. From the video, it's hard to tell for a layperson what the hazard was, but I thought maybe you guys can discuss it. I am Longmeadow Henri, the same guy who wrote to you about Reno 911. Oh, yeah, and you're talking about the fact that I remind you of
Your voice
Sergeant,
reminded him of.
What's his name?
I forget the guy's name.
Yeah.
God, it's been so long since I've
guy.
watched. Yeah, the short guy. It's been so long since I watched that.
I do like that character, though. I do. It's one of the funniest ones. Anyway, I've also included an additional picture of a Coletta flight that came to Bradley this week, lovingly referred to as Air Horse One. Why don't we show that overlay, Liz, while I get the video. There's Air Horse One, Tex Sutton. That's a beautiful 727, November 725 Charlie Kilo. Very nice. So the the thing he was telling us about the video and the TCAS resolution advisory. I'm opening right now. Yep. Lieutenant Jim. Lieutenant Jim is the, I don't know, the character in Reno 911. I just don't remember. Yeah. Okay. Well, here we go. I'm going to open up the video, and it's probably going to start playing. Let's stop for a moment, and then if you can remove that overlay, and then, okay, now, here is the video from Bass Aviation. Real Aviation Communications. Be advised, only MSP arrivals have been imported into this thing. Okay. So
South 3645, reduce speed to 170.
Traffic's being
Delta 2088, the airport 12 o'clock and 12 miles.
Parallel.
We have the airport type Delta 2088.
Delta 2088, join the final at Jacko, cleared visual approach, runway 30 right, present speed.
Turn final at Jacko, clear for the visual to the right, Delta 2088.
Falcon 2 Sierra Tango, descend to maintain 5,000, then reduce speed to 170.
Maintain 5,000, then reduce to 170, 2 Sierra Tango.
Delta 1073, reduce speed to 160 until Narco.
1073, just responding to RA.
Delta 1073, roger.
Delta 1073, clear conflict, we can take a heading L2.
Delta 1073, did you want to continue on the approach or be resequenced?
Negative, we're tower.
Delta 1073, you're on climate, maintain 5,000, turn left heading 180, cancel your approach.
Alright, left turn to 180, heading 5,000, Delta 1073. Tower, Delta 2164, ILS 30 right.
Delta 2164, Minneapolis, hour traffic, 3 miles, final CRJ, wind 290 at 16, gust 28, runway 30 right, clear to land.
Clear to land, Delta 2164.
November 2 Sierra Tango, turn left heading 320, airport 10 o'clock, 18 miles.
Left heading 320, looking 2 Sierra Tango.
November 2 Sierra Tango, intercept the runway 30 left, localizer.
Intercept the localizer, 2 Sierra Tango.
Delta 1073, maintain 190 knots.
Alright, 190 knots for Delta 1073, we're on 180 heading 5,000 feet.
Thank you.
Airport side, 2 Sierra Tango.
November 2 Sierra Tango, thank you, cleared visual approach runway 30 left, maintain 170 knots until Narco.
170 Narco, cleared visual 30 left, 2 Sierra Tango.
And then it says Delta 1073 was resequenced for another approach and landed safely. And now what we're looking at, if you'll look at the show notes, the link to this Bass Aviation video on YouTube, or you're watching the video, you'll see the depiction of parallel approaches, 30 left and 30 right at Minneapolis-St. Paul Airport. And the airplane, or the flight, Delta 1073, was on the parallel approach, and apparently it's a TCAS computer, and they normally don't do this. They usually are desensitized when you're coming in for parallel approaches.
Yeah, well, yeah, and it's different. Well, how high was that Delta again? I'm sorry. When the RA
not
happened?
That high. I don't remember exactly what his altitude was.
Like climbed back up to 5,000, so he was somewhere.
He was below 5,000.
Yeah, because at a certain point, resolution advisories are inhibited at a certain point on the approach. At a certain I can't remember. I think it's 1,500 feet radio altitude. The RAs basically go away. But yeah, I mean, two things there. One, it's happened to me when you get a resolution advisory. And basically, the way the system works is you have a piece of equipment on the airplane called a transponder, which basically talks to other airplanes' transponders, and they coordinate. So if the one airplane intrudes upon the other airplane's protected zone, it's called, then the two transponders start to figure out a way to deconflict the situation. Giving an airplane a climb command and another airplane a descent command. And that's what you're supposed to do. I mean, you at that point, you stop listening to ATC and you respond to what your traffic collision avoidance system is telling you. And the way this works is, depending on the system, there's going to be some kind of cockpit indication, whether either on your attitude indicator or on your vertical speed indicator. showing you a fly to zone in green, basically. But the problem with that is that there's paperwork involved afterwards. You have to file a report with sometimes the company, then you have to file an ASAP report, then a NASA report, and all sorts of things. So obviously not optimal, but that's what the system is there for. It's for safety. And the other thing is, I found it interesting how the controller lady was giving cues to that other airplane about where the airport is and the distance, obviously wanting him to take the visual approach. The problem with taking a visual approach is that once you accept that, separation and sequencing it's up to you. And in such a heavy traffic airport, and at that time of day, I would have just stayed on the ILS. And the other thing is that with the visual approach, your missed approach procedure changes completely. So once you accept the visual approach, you're no longer, if you go missed, you're no longer flying the published missed off of the instrument approach procedure, because you're not on an instrument approach anymore. You're flying a visual approach. At that point, your missed approach procedure is runway heading and 1,500 feet above the airport. And I've seen times when I guess people forget this and they go missed off of the visual, and all of a sudden they start going missed on the published missed, and then ATC starts going, oh, well, where are you going? Yeah. So it opens you up for a bunch of things where, if you didn't accept the visual, you'd kind of be more protected, which is what I would tend to gravitate towards in this particular situation. But that's just me.
I'm a little bit unsure as to what the traffic was that caused his RA.
It was a parallel.
It was the 2164. So those runways are half a mile apart, at least.
Yeah.
I just pulled it up to look at it.
They're
not
super
close.
No.
So would the other aircraft have not got an RA?
I guess it's possible, but it's
unless it was suppressed by the altitude,
the other one should too.
Yeah, exactly. That's If one gets one, then the other one is supposed to get another one as well, because that's how you deconflict.
So I wonder if it was just something wonky with that particular. They're supposed to work really well, but
in the older days, probably before Steph and Rick were born, no, I don't think they had TCAS back then. But the initial versions of the software,
Ages. What are you talking about?
Yeah. Before the turn of the century.
Yeah.
So they, in the earlier software versions, when you were doing close parallel approaches, one of the procedures for us was to actually go from TA/RA to just TA. So
it still is. It still is. Okay. So, but
then the airplane I fly just does automatically.
Yeah.
Even when I was still flying this job years ago, where we had software that would automatically do the right thing on a parallel approach.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's not funny.
That was very good.
That
actually.
was good. That was good. That was really good.
I was just talking to a fellow pilot the other day. I said, when I was hired back 32 years ago, the airline that everybody made fun of was American Airlines, with their talk about light chop and asking for ride reports and everything else. And somehow it's shifted to another airline over the years. And then we thought, what? It's probably whoever has the best contract and making the most money out there. That's the one that's going to be the target.
There was a meme going around the other week, which a lot of listeners probably saw, but it said something to the effect of, on a scale from Delta to FedEx, how's the ride?
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw that. That was very funny. Absolutely.
And as I've mentioned before in recent shows in the last couple of years, we have an amazing piece of software that we don't really even have to ask about ride reports anymore. The only time that the only time we should be giving them is when somebody asks us for it, because this piece of software on my iPad, my EFB, is amazingly accurate. I mean, you can look at it in the different colors and the different altitudes, and you can tell exactly. You say, it looks like we're about to come up on a darker green area, and all of a sudden the airplane starts shaking. You go, dang, that was like right on cue. So there's Liz says maybe that's only Acme, not Delta. That's true. Good point. They may not have the advanced
Acme's
system
got much
we
better
have.
kit.
Yeah,
I think so.
Acme and Delta are, similar, but not the same.
Similar,
Yeah.
but
Very
not the
clear.
same.
Yeah.
Anyway,
But I tell you what, I mean, we all kind of chuckle every time we hear on the radio, the light chop. Everybody does.
every
Everybody
time I
does.
hear it, I
Funny.
go, just like, shut up. Don't say it. Don't say it.
Yeah.
They
Because
can't
it's
help
just going to
themselves.
make it worse.
They
I
can't
know.
help
If it's
themselves.
light,
just
what
like,
does it matter?
That's just like
I'm with Rick, by the way, just going back to this particular incident rather than anything else. If you're going to fly a parallel approach and you want protections, then ask for a instrument approach. Don't accept a visual.
Yeah.
So this is one circumstance where I think it would be a good idea.
I guess
I'd be
I'm the minority in this. 2 against 1.
Yeah, okay. But I would be very, very cautious, certainly in the teachings in my old airline, about ignoring an RA, thinking, oh, well, I know exactly where everyone is. This is going to be full swan. Just in case there's an intruder that you hadn't really taken on board that had crept underneath you. Because, it takes you a while to assess what's going on, get your essay going. And an RA really is, this is a last ditch. You're going to hit the bloody guy if you don't do something quick, mate. You haven't really got time to assess the situation. So you're quite right in doing what the chap did, was to follow his RA instructions, his resolution advisor instructions.
My question is, why did he initiate a turn? Because the present evolution of TCAS does not provide any turn guidance.
No, you're quite right. It's all predicated on a vertical maneuver.
Right. And he
once
starts
you've
making a
achieved
turn
the
on his
vertical
own,
maneuver,
180.
Yeah, very good point. But perhaps he realised he was drifting towards the other lane. I don't know, the other ILS, and decided to straighten his course or something. But no, you're quite right. A turn is inappropriate because you might need that performance in the vertical sense. And if you've put bank on, you're not necessarily going to get it.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Okay. This was a
Pip
good
has
one.
just joined
This
us.
was a really good one.
Yeah, Pip
And
from the Plane Safety
speak
Podcast.
of the devil and speak of the topic we were just speaking of.
Yeah. Well, why don't you read that?
Says, just got home from a 6-day usual sorts of places, nothing too exciting. Did get a TCAS RA today whilst on the ILS. That's the first. For him anyway.
Yeah, you don't. It is kind of uncommon to get. That's not where you normally get RAs. It's more usually for like departures and arrivals and airplanes like climbing rapidly and descending rapidly and in the lower altitude environments.
But that's essentially what we were just talking about, Pip, in case you missed it.
But having said that, America is one of the places where we were always very cautious of them because of the number of light aircraft corridors that go underneath ILS approaches.
I can tell you, next out here in Southern California, it
it's
is just a given that you're going to have some kind of issue. That's why usually what they'll do is they'll level you off, pretty low. I'm talking 3,000-4,000 feet. And these things, when you fly them, not a full weight, as you well know, they climb like a rocket. And so another issue with resolution advisories, as Jeff was mentioning, is climb rate and closure rate. And so if you're not proactive with your vertical mode, you can find yourself in a position where you might have to respond to an RA because you put yourself there, because you didn't anticipate the aircraft's performance.
And you caused somebody else, perfectly innocent people, coming in on an arrival at a level altitude, and all of a sudden now they're getting an RA too.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Exactly.
Thank you for adjusting your climb rate. You jerk.
Yeah.
That was something that we had, during the pandemic, the initial, when we were carrying like 4 or 5 passengers, it was something I briefed. It was like, look, we have
all
to really
4
be
or 5 of
cognizant
them.
of the fact,
He just did the full brief for everyone. It's like, hey, just come on up here.
Briefing the passengers, briefing my fellow pilot. That, hey, let's really think about the fact that, I know normally we would be flying in this mode, but let's think about maybe going into vertical speed and going 1,000 miles a minute or something.
Absolutely.
As we're getting close to level off, so we don't cause all these RAs all over. I mean, they were becoming very, very common, these RAs.
But you see, the problem there is that you start using vertical speed, you can get into a position where you could very easily overspeed the flaps. So it's just, you have to be on top of your game, right away, because otherwise.
Well, and I guess it depends on the airplane. If it's like vertical speed in the airplane I'm flying now, is the auto throttle system is just very responsive. It won't get you overspeed stuff.
Basically, you were saying you need to be ahead of the aircraft. There's no time to sit back on your haunches and think, this is another old ILS. It might be the sixth of your day. But no, you've got to be ahead of the aircraft and thinking all the time, because these things can creep up on you when you're not ready for it.
So true. So true. All right, finally, we're going to end with this one. This is feedback from Maggie. It says, did Ivor send it in for Maggie? He said it's not me. I don't know. Let's see. Let's go. I think it's from Maggie, the cat. Dear airline pilots and doctors at large, just a note from Maggie, or Ivor's cat, as Nick refers to me. I heard you read out the news item about the over-enthusiastic cat that got into the cockpit of an aircraft and scared the slightly delicate aircrew into diverting. While better safe than sorry, and in all seriousness, it could have been quite a dangerous situation. I mean, the cat might have missed a meal, or worse, a nap. But I must claim innocence on this situation. Paw on my heart, I was nowhere near any aircraft on that fateful day. I'm a bit of a home-loving cat. But on the other hand, my son and favorite cat of the delightful Mrs. Ivor, namely Smudge, he is, if I say so myself, a bit of a wrong'un, out all night, most nights, not really a people person. This last fact might go against him. So if the appropriate authorities need his details, I will provide them, but I won't provide them unless asked, as that would be, as we say in the UK, dobbing him in, and we don't do that. So, mum's the word for now. To sum up the situation, I think you chaps should keep this under your rather natty pilot's hats. The less said, the better. Relying on your discretion. Maggie.
Maggie, I make no promises. I don't wear hats with my uniform, so...
No natty hats?
No.
I used to. It was made out of cat fur.
And it had a tail.
Yeah. To hang down the back. Little tail hanging down the back.
Poor Maggie. She's just trying to be nice and helpful.
I don't think it was Maggie's fur.
Oh, okay. I know,
but
some
you're
other
being
very
moggy.
Disrespectful to Maggie.
It was Moggy fur, not Maggie fur.
Okay.
Any coincidence.
All right.
Or any similarity is purely coincidental, right?
That's right.
Yeah. I wonder if I should send Maggie this book I've got, 101 uses for a dead cat.
That would be very insensitive.
You really think?
I'm sure she's got a birthday or something coming up.
Yeah, that would be an appropriate time.
Well, the other thing is that she wouldn't have to worry about it for the first 8 times. So, so
yeah,
that's true. Yeah, exactly right. Yeah.
All right, I think I about had it with all this.
I'm ejecting.
He's had it with us, I think is what he was saying.
This is now time for us to wrap up the show. So officially, this is wrap up. We have several items in our feedback that we didn't get to, and you know the story. We'll move that over to the next show. And if you are new to the show and you've stuck with us for almost 3 hours here, I mean, God bless you. Thank you for doing that, and I hope you find it interesting and entertaining and maybe somewhat informative, 50%. That's what we're shooting for here. And if you want to learn more about the show and listen to more podcasts and get more detailed information on the plane tales, if you're a reader and you want to read some good books that are mostly aviation related, we also have the APG library. Our APG librarian, Tiffany, takes care of managing that for us. Also have merchandise, and we have information about the crew and the calendar. Yeah, the APG community calendar. We're hoping that as time goes on, we have more and more things on that APG community calendar, like meetups and that sort of thing. Coffee fund information and much more. So again, head over to airlinepilotguide.com and you'll be glad you did, maybe. We're also on social media, or what I like to call social meds, and Steph's going to tell us all about that.
I shall tell you all about the social media. We are on Twitter. You can find us using the handle at APG Crew. You can find our individual Twitter information pinned to the top of that page. So join us there. We are also on Facebook, facebook.com/airline pilot guy. Lots of good community interaction going on there. Folks sharing aviation stories from around the world and the like. And if you're more interested in pictures, we're on Instagram, APG Crew. So we will see you on the social medias.
And who doesn't like pictures, really? Come on.
I mean, I can't read, so I prefer them.
Speaking of pictures, this is one you really don't want to have in your head. Hey, Hillel, you have time for Slack? Tell us about Slack.
Okay, but I'm dripping wet.
All right, well, come on over here anyway. Just make sure you don't get water all over this nice equipment that I'm sitting in front of. And here, let me move out of the way. You can sit down here in this chair. All right. Okay, tell them about Slack.
APG listeners, please join us on our Slack team. Slack is a communication, coordination, and sharing platform that works on your mobile, laptop, or browser. On Slack, we share news and ideas, we suggest episode and plain tales topics, we plan events and meetups. To get into the Slack team, please email me at slack@airlinepilotguy.com. That's SLACK, Sierra Lima Alpha Charlie Kilo @airlinepilotguy.com. Or send me a tweet with your preferred email address to @Hillel, and I'll send you an invitation. That's Hillel, spelled Hotel India 11 Echo 1, and see you in Slack.
Thanks, Hillel. Now, go put some clothes on or something, all right?
What kind of place is this? Where are we? How does this thing work?
Wow. You'd think all the time that he spends in there, he'd understand where he is. And
Yeah,
how
but
it
it's
works.
bit complicated. Every one of those bathrooms is different.
That's true.
I think Nick may have been doing the electrical work in that bathroom.
no.
I think the lights are out
You
or
can't see
something.
can't see anything.
No, but I certainly did the plumbing.
Oh, my.
There's the problem.
There's
the problem.
There's your problem.
Oh, my. Yes. Liz says that's why you had a leak in your basement, Jeff.
You haven't been leaking in your basement again, have you?
No. No, I try not to. I use the
Generally
toilet.
outside, yeah.
Yeah,
Or the outside, yeah. Just walk outside.
Smell builds up after a while, you know.
Yeah. All right. Well, also a big thanks to our producer, director,
Hey,
my assistant.
hey, Liz. Good job
in
with Plain
Toronto,
Tales.
Liz Piper. She's awesome. Thank you, Liz. You're the best. All right. And I think if I do this, it'll fade out really much better than normal. Okay. And with that, we look forward to seeing you all back here again with us, especially those of you in the live audience next week for our next show, episode 466. And until then, wishing you clear skies, unlimited visibility, and tailwinds. Take care, and God bless.
Cheers, y'all.
We'll see you next week. Take care.
Bye, everybody. Woof, woof.
Was that like just a finger in the air at Maggie?
No,
Yeah, I think so.
Might have been.
There's 2 fingers in the air
Two
for
fingers,
Maggie.
yeah.
A double-barreled.
Yeah, just the British standard.
There you go.
I definitely heard your squeaky chair there towards the end again, Nick.
My squeaky chair?
Yeah.
I don't have a
It
squeaky chair.
wasn't me. I don't have a squeaky chair at all.
Nick was the only one moving, and it was definitely a little squeaky.
I didn't hear it.
You didn't hear it?
I heard
No. But now, hey, Nige.
See, these old guys can't hear anything.
I'm high tone deaf, so if it's a high pitched squeak, I'm not going to get that.
Just
Get
rock
some
back and
water
forth for a
displacement
second.
40 for your chair.
Ah, there it is.
I can hear that
we know
creaking, but I
we know
usually
what
mute
WD-40 is.
if I'm
Just hit
rocking.
mute.
If
All
you're
right.
rocking,
If it-
don't come a knocking.
I was going to say the same thing.
I was refraining. I was trying hard not to.
Warped minds.
Must be
think
an
alike.
Americanism.
That's right.
Well, that's what you put the bumper sticker that's on the van, Nick.
Oh,
This thing's rocking,
okay,
don't
now I've
come
got it.
knocking.
Yeah, okay.
I don't understand what that means, but
Yeah,
it's a
yeah.
thing. Yeah.
Sounds
so,
great fun.
Yeah.
Ah,
Hey,
it's
everybody.
not-
Jeff growing leaks in the basement? No, leaking. I'm leaking.
Sprung leak.
Peeing on the wall in my basement. Actually,
We've asked him not to
latest-
do that. We've advised him not to do that, but
It's starting to smell. actually. The last time that I patched up that little area with the pinhole where the water was coming through, it's done the trick. I haven't seen a leak in quite
What
some
did you
time.
say? Patched up the hole with the pinhole. I wondered what you were talking about. Whether you were peeking through pinholes. Where was this pinhole?
What do you call a very, very tiny hole?
Pinhole. But where was it?
In the wall, the basement wall.
Ah, there you go. You see, sneaking a peek through the pinhole in your basement wall.
Yeah. You don't really see much through that little hole. But anyway.
They make great projectors, pinhole cameras.
Mike Kuipers is saying, it's Nick creaking, not the chair.
Yes, probably. Actually, you're probably right. The way I feel when I wake up in the morning, oh, my back.
Well, thank you, Eric in Vetland. Great as always. You are the best. Thank you. That's not what everybody thinks out there, but we do appreciate it.
Anyone else out there got show title suggestions?
7 levels of Liz.
7 levels of what?
Liz.
Of Liz?
7 levels of Liz. What was it exactly?
It was like the show went up 7 levels because of Liz. That's what it was. Something with Liz and 7. I don't know.
Yeah.
Nah.
I'm
I thought
usually
the same thing,
a
Liz,
title.
When he said that, I thought, oh, that's a title.
How the hell am I gonna? I've got lasers and snowflakes. I think
I like that one.
Is the snowflake the 717 first officer?
Yeah.
Well, I don't think we need to be that literal. I think
lasers
and snowflakes.
So,
I got
Rob
that
says
one
the
written
Creaking
down right
Pilot
here.
Show.
Oh man.
Well, that's a bit rude. Hamish T. Haggis.
Let's see. Every day is Waffle Day here. What's this Waffle Day stuff?
I don't know. Apparently it's Waffle Day.
No.
I didn't have any waffles. I didn't know.
Is there such a thing as a waffle day?
There's Waffle House.
I don't know. I'm kind of going back and forth on it. Thank you.
We'll be here all week.
That's just one chuckle. But I'll take it.
It wasn't a chuckle. It was an exasperated, like, ugh.
No, that would be coming from you. And I just kind of ignore that.
Probably best.
Your passive aggressiveness. I'm numb to it. Numb to it. I'm telling
Hey, did you send this
Steph.
thunderstorm my way? I think you did. It's about to.
Yeah. Have fun with it.
Yeah. Thanks. Actually, the really bad stuff's going to pass to the south, so we're good.
Yeah, most of it passed to the north of us, so I didn't. It was like some heavy rain and some windiness, but that was it. No hail or anything else. So,
good.
The power stayed on the whole time, so that's good.
Rusty brakes, donuts, and J-turns. Well, I could do donuts and J-turns. I don't know how I'm going to fit rusty brakes into it.
What's a J-turn?
I don't know what a J-turn is, but I could make it up.
Do you have any idea, Steph? What's a J-turn?
I don't know what we were talking about.
No clue. I know about
U-turn?
a U-turn, but
I know
not
what
a
a U-turn
J-turn.
is.
A 3-point turn?
I don't know. But yeah, what were we talking about there?
I don't know.
The brakes, the rusty brakes.
I don't remember.
Well,
You do it with
you
your-
see, I could do an
e-brake.
airline. I could do an
Oh,
airline
an
on a
e-brake
runway
turn?
doing donuts. That would be all right. I could.
Yeah.
Do that. What's a
Yeah, you hit
J-turn?
she said it's with you do it with your e-brake, your emergency brake. So you turn and pull the e-brake up so that you
Oh, a handbrake turn,
Handbrake,
as we
yeah.
would call it in the UK.
reverse at speed, then 180 using e-brake to continue forward. There we go.
Yeah. Why would it be called a J though?
Because it looks like a J. Because you come along and then you turn 380 degrees like the bottom of a J.
Just like a U?
Yeah. But,
okay.
But that
not
terminology
as
was already
obvious.
used for something different.
But not as
for that
obvious.
maneuver that
yeah.
people do when they've screwed up their directions and need to.
We are not lost. I know exactly where I am.
How about
What's an e-brake?
A P turn.
Your handbrake,
Emergency brake.
emergency brake.
What do people do before e-brakes?
E-learning?
Emergency brake. What's this emergency brake?
It's the
What do you
handbrake.
guys call it? Handbrake?
It's the same-
Parking brake.
It's parking brake.
Okay.
Same thing. You can use all of those terms here and it's understood, but I think most people would call it an e-brake.
I've never heard of anybody saying e-brake.
Really?
Yeah. Never.
Odd.
Maybe it's because I'm old.
It's a
Maybe that's what the
millennial
kids say.
expression.
A millennial expression. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. D-brakes. JJ from Pittsburgh. A JJ turn.
That's-
So you're back where
Perfect.
you started, basically,
Yes.
after a JJ turn.
That's your donut.
No, a
actually.
JJ turn's just a donut, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I like donuts, so I like JJ turns. All right. That's
Producer
enough.
is giving us she's yanking
Yeah,
us off the
I see that.
stage.
She's
Robert's
cracking the
giving
whip
us
again.
She's not enjoying
Robert's
our
giving it-
obviously fascinating discussion of handbrakes and e-brakes.
she is not. And she's not on the talkback channel anymore, so she can't be screaming at me in my ears. So, yeah, that's a good thing. All
We're
right.
going to see a cane pretty soon. Yank us off
Yeah.
here.
Robert calls them brakes from those islands, Caribbean islands. They're de-brakes.
Ah, the brakes.
Brakes, de-brakes.
The brakes monster.
Yeah, it's time to stop.
Yeah, we gotta go.
Gotta go now.
Good night.
All right, we're going to
Good
go.
night, everybody.
Liz is going to get upset with us if we don't go. Bye.
Adios.
We'll see you then.
Good luck.
Yeah,
See you
good
next
luck.
time, perhaps.